Before telling the whole story, I'll briefly explain what to expect from this work. Imagine a boy whose only skill is in M-Orcs and who has no social interaction outside of Discord. Suddenly, he wakes up in another world. But in this case, he wakes up already married to the Queen of Demons, who ends up losing her powers and her kingdom pretty quickly. In this world, beyond magic and sword fighting, you will be able to create anything from your thoughts. That's right, you just need a magic stone and the right knowledge. With that in hand, you'll have the chance to reclaim the demon kingdom that was stolen from you, alongside your wife, who is also extremely powerful. However, to achieve that, there's a journey through a very rich and diverse universe. And that's what I'm going to show you right now. In a barren and completely desolate region, some kind of giant monster arrives, breaking the ground just by stepping on it. This monster is part of the enchanted race with the class Malleable Body, whose danger level is B, and it's screaming for some reason. Behind it, a person appears, scaring it. Then a boy with blue hair charges at it. A power begins to form in his fist. This is the ability of the Ancestral Fist. With this ability, he can hit the creature using the Explosive Blast Punch, thinking that because of its soft and loose skin, the punch's impact was completely absorbed. He quickly realizes that the monster is furious, hovering in the air as the creature prepares to counterattack. Nervous, he thinks he'll only be able to defend himself from now on. Closing his eyes, he prepares for his imminent death. However, sharp cutting sounds can be heard by the hero. Opening his eyes, he sees that a purple-haired girl has saved him by slicing the monster into pieces. She then tells him in a serious tone to step back immediately. Relieved not to be dead and grateful for being saved, the boy thanks her. Confused, the gigantic creature doesn't understand what just happened. However, it apparently can regenerate. Already frustrated, the boy questions whether all attacks are ineffective against this monster. Someone holding a magic spear appears, suggesting that they should avoid using physical attacks since they seem to have no effect. Looking back, the boy says that it's already time and that it's been a while. With a sharp look, the girl tells him to shut up. Completing the magic circle, the boy prepares for his strike. This one is called Empowerment of the God. Using the ability New Layering Chain, several magical chains begin to emerge from the circle. They all move toward the giant creature, binding its feet and arms. Furious, the monster screams for being completely chained by the magical chains. In the background, the mage activates his ability, sending lightning through the golden chains, turning everything into a literal electric chain. It's a huge amount of electricity heading toward the same monster. All of it hits at once, assaulting the monster. There's so much accumulated electricity that it seems the creature is going to be incinerated. However, it remains alive but still chained. Although completely worn out, it manages to muster strength and break all the chains. It then collapses to the ground, completely drained of stamina. It seems like it devoured several organisms from the barren region, and for some reason, it doesn't seem to be just a level B threat. The mage asks them to retreat because they are one step behind, saying that in fact, this monster is about to give birth. A bizarre creature starts emerging from inside it. This is the demonic fetus of consummation, a parasitic class monster with an S-level threat. This monster turns its head toward the heroes. Clearly is targeting the group. Despite being newborn, it begins to wield some kind of power, launching a powerful beam from its head. The beam is extremely dense and massive, filled with caricatures that seem to be screaming and begging for help. This power is so strong that it ends up destroying several rocky mountains in the barren region. Very nervous, the blue-haired boy comments that the whole place is always getting destroyed. However, he quickly notices something in the sky. Beyond him, the demonic fetus also senses something strange. In front of the moon, we can see another demonic monster. Shouting, the mage warns them to stay behind him, saying something terrifying is approaching. However, the fetus also appears surprised and confused. This new monster is in the sky with an appearance that greatly resembles medieval armor. It starts conjuring some kind of purple power that looks a lot like antimatter but in the shape of a cross. It quickly launches this black beam toward the demonic fetus's beam. It's so powerful that it destroys the fetus's beam, hitting its head completely. After the impact, a lot of dust rises due to the region being completely dry. We see an immense crater formed solely by this power. The mage managed to form some kind of advanced shield to protect his companions. They question what kind of thing is happening now and that this is a huge problem. Besides, there was no prior warning from any of them before using these powerful attacks. However, it becomes clear that the ability of this new demon was clearly used to end the other demon's attacks for good. He ended up consuming energy from the magical stone to relieve that he's not their enemy. From the dust, someone wearing a purple boot emerges. This demon woman says that killing that fetus was like crushing an insect, and that anyway, they needed the queen to come here at a time like this. Then she says that after coming to this world, her mind has been in chaos. Continuing, she questions if the chosen one to save the world is really that weak. Approaching the boy, she comments that it seems there is still much to teach him and that only this way he will truly become the king of the realm. Awkwardly nervous, he thinks that somehow he managed to become the ruler of these lands after coming to this world, and that she is his wife. This is the queen of the demon tribe, Isabella, with a level of danger that is immeasurable. She explains that the Xulu region has several tribes, and that among all of them, two stand out: the human tribe and the demon tribe, which are the most powerful. These two went to war a few centuries ago due to natural resources. Both reached their limit over time, and the human tribe was the first to ask for peace. Then, shortly after, the demon tribe made a decision. The queen of the demon tribe, Isabella Osa herself, agreed to sign this peace treaty. Somewhere on planet Earth, a boy is playing an MMORPG similar to Lowell. He ends up winning in the end. The others say that's why he's the #1 player in the region, achieving another pentakill. And someone else comments that even without playing seriously, he's very good. Drinking his juice box, a boy comments that if he hadn't been ganked once in mid, it would have been a totally perfect game. His name is Shang Yi. His parents have been working abroad for many years, and because of this, he has no friends and has been locked up at home for an entire summer. He does only two things: draw or play games all day. Initially, he thought his entire summer would continue like this until it ended. He never imagined that he would become the savior of another world. Closing his eyes, he thinks about how tired he is and that he'll play more tomorrow. After taking a nap, he starts to slowly open his eyes. He questions when his ceiling started to look like that. Suddenly, he sees a woman staring at him. Frightened, he asks who she is and why she's inside his house. Irritated, she calls him an idiot and warns him that this place is not his house, actually. He's confused and just listens to her. After taking a good look around, he asks what place this is and wonders if he's hallucinating after playing for so long. He slaps his own face to wake up, thinking he's hallucinating, but comments that everything feels too real for it to be just a hallucination. Then he starts observing the other people and their clothing. Worried, he wonders if he's in another universe. The demon woman asks the priest if he is truly the one mentioned in the prophecy. The elderly person replies that the legends say the one who wears the magic ring similar to the queen's is indeed the chosen one. Staring at her, he asks what magic ring she's talking about. Grabbing the ring from his necklace, he asks if she's interested in this thing here. It's a golden ring with a jewel in its center, similar to a ruby. Still a bit irritated, she explains that it's exactly this magic ring they're talking about, showing that she has one identical to his. Pulling him by the coat, irritated, she questions why he doesn't feel even a drop of magic coming from him since he's the chosen one. She asserts that besides that, he's also part of the human tribe. Nervous, he says he doesn't understand anything she's saying, and that he actually bought the ring from a street vendor. In shock, the woman asks if he really bought the ring, loudly questioning the priest about whether there is nothing wrong with the summoning spell. While pointing at the boy, she asks how she ended up summoning a useless human like him. Without putting much faith in the boy, she says that the summoning spell was executed correctly, and that he is the one who will save the demon tribe from extinction. Already annoyed, the boy asks if they can explain what's going on and also asks who they are. Isabella tells him to listen well, calling him human trash. She explains that she is the 7th descendant of the demon tribe, named Isabella Osa. She explains that she signed the peace treaty between demons and humans. However, no one imagined that High Commander Lillian and the humans would make a secret deal. They all banded together and attacked the demon queen, where she was unarmed and unprepared. To this day, no one knows what kind of magic Lillian used, but she managed to extract a large amount of magic from the queen. However, the queen had 4 guards who gave their lives to protect her in the end. She then says that the only reason she has survived until now is because of the sacrifice of her guards, and that only a few here would have the ability to protect her. Thoughtful, the protagonist begins to understand that this is one of those stories where he's transported to another world, an isekai, and that he saves the female protagonist in danger. Excited, he wonders if he is the male protagonist in this case, and that it would be great if he ended up with a demon queen, like her at the end of the story. After his daydreams, he asks the woman if he could hide in some mountain or something like that. Irritated, she asks if he thinks those treacherous humans would let her go just like that. Others from the tribe arrived, shouting that they were being pursued earlier, and that's why they ended up surrounded here, explaining that the queen depended on the chosen one as her last resort, but they had no idea he was a useless fool. Suddenly, the queen feels some pain and her companion asks if she is alright. In shock, Isabella says she can feel her aura disappearing bit by bit. Then something begins to happen to her body. All of her energy and dark aura begin to materialize in the room. Her purple hand is slowly disintegrating, being replaced by the form of a regular human hand. The scales on her legs are also disappearing, and in their place appear the legs of a normal woman of her age. Seeing all this, the priest and her subordinates are also in shock. The boy himself is surprised, not understanding what's happening now. As he bleeding comments that even smaller, they are still huge. Nervously, the girl begins to understand. Looking at her arm, she asks why her body started changing like this. Seeing the girl look so different, the priestess says it's likely because the queen's aura was diminished, and that this must be the reason her body altered this way. Embarrassed, the queen wonders how she will look like this before her people. One of the subordinates, in shock, comments that the queen consumed her aura because of them. Pointing at the human, she says it's all the fault of this useless piece of trash and encourages her sisters to finish him off. Caught by surprise, he explains that he's the victim here, and that he didn't even want to be summoned to this world. Opening the door, one of the men explains that the human tribe is about to break through their defenses. Badly injured, he asks that Her Majesty be escorted out of this place. As she dresses, she says it was quick, and her subordinates says they will defend her with all their might. Smiling, Isabella says she's very lucky to have warriors like them who care so much about her. Walking to her queen, the high priestess says that she now looks like a normal human and that this will make her escape easier, but that she must be careful not to let the humans discover her true identity, saying she will stay behind to help the guards hold them off and that this way they can aid her escape. Irritated, the queen says she refuses, and that no matter the situation, she will not abandon her people. Ignoring the priestess, she begins casting some kind of magic. A magic circle starts forming on the ground, catching the attention of the queen and her subordinate. Everyone is in the magic circle, including Isabella, her subordinates, and the protagonist, who is standing scared in just his underwear. Nervous, the queen tries to stop her high priestess while her subordinate holds her arm, telling her not to go. Now outside the circle, the hero thinks that when the human tribe invades this place, he will ask them to send him back. Seeing that he escaped, the 2 subordinates say they need to retrieve the boy and that he cannot run away. Gasping and sweating nervously, he begs them to leave him alone. The old woman comments that she has been helping the leaders for 5 generations and that this will be a last time, gently asking for the opportunity to be useful to her queen one more time. Crying, the queen and Isabella try to stop her, but she ends up being teleported in the end. After that, the high priestess remains silent. Suddenly, the palace is invaded with the door being broken down, and a cloud of dust rises as people approach. Looking back, the old woman begins to smile. With arms crossed stands a bearded, red-haired man along with his guards. This is Thorstis Angus, the regent, who asks where the queen is now. In response, the old woman only smiles silently. Now, in a distant place that looks more like a forest, a beam of blue light begins to appear, and suddenly, a group of warriors shows up, transported by the old woman. The warriors seem surprised while the girl looks upset. They then wonder if the tribe of humans is still surrounding them. Suddenly, they spot the castle where they had just been. The one with the green mohawk comments that it's not too far from here, and that they need to go quickly, while the blonde tells her queen to pull herself together. Determined, the woman says not to worry because her queen won't be mourning at a time like this. With a vengeful look, she says she will avenge all the soldiers who sacrifice themselves for her, telling them to move quickly while a man watches them from a cliff. Everyone is smiling, and one of them comments that they will finally find the remaining troops of the demon tribe. The group is walking slowly to get out of this place. Suddenly, an arrow appears, and looking back, the queen realizes something dangerous. The arrow quickly pierces the shoulder of one of the warriors, saying that it's a human arrow, while the protagonist yells that she's bleeding a lot. One of them tells Her Majesty to go first and that they will handle this. The men rush at the group, and one of them comments that the king told them they would earn 20 gold pieces for every demon believer they bring back. Bleeding, the woman says that these humans are scum. Looking at the boy, she asks him to promise that he will protect the queen, saying that this is her last request. Nervously, the boy says to leave it to him. He quickly grabs Isabella by the wrist. Angry, she tells him to let go because she will fight alongside her troops. Arguing, the boy says that she will end up killing herself that way and should escape with him. Irritated, she explains that she would rather die than abandon her troops on her own. Shang yells at her to stop fooling herself, saying that if she returns to fight, their sacrifice will be meaningless, and that only if she stays alive and well can she avenge her fallen soldiers, but if she dies, she won't be able to do anything. Looking back at the massacre, she begins to cry, seeing Luria being completely defeated. Another, tying up one of the warriors, asks if he can have some fun with her before finishing her off. Seeing all this barbaric slaughter, the queen starts to cry in agony. However, she decides to move forward, listening to the protagonist. Suddenly, a human soldier appears, smiling wickedly. Both the boy and Isabella are startled. They are surrounded by enemy soldiers. One of them comments that they are humans, and another says that their clothes are strange, and they must have been slaves of the demons. That one of them wonders if they should kill them or not. Without hesitation, the girl lets go of the protagonist's hand, running toward one of the soldiers. Crying out of anger, she calls them animals and charges into the fight. She goes to punch the unsuspecting soldier with her bare hands. Quickly hugging him, he comments that she got really excited to see people of her own race. Hearing this, one of the soldiers is surprised, saying that from what he heard, the demon tribe brainwashes their slaves to see people of their own race as threats. Smiling like a madman, the other says that this means the two of them can be considered demon soldiers, and he wonders if their heads are worth any reward. Drawing his sword, he says he doesn't care about that, and that if they have ties to the demon tribe, they deserve death. Nervously, seeing this situation, Shang wonders if this guy is really willing to kill people of his own race. Then he begins to bow the queen's head, who doesn't understand this gesture. As he forces her head down in a sign of respect, he comments that the man misunderstood everything, and that the demons did not brainwash the two of them, and that she has been harassed by the demon tribe since a very young age to the point of suffering emotional trauma. Smiling, she explains that they were intimidated by the demon tribe for a long time, kindly asking them to let them go. With blood in her eyes, Isabella says that he is making royalty kneel and that she will definitely kill him. Whispering, the hero comments for her to stop talking about respect when she can't even break free from him in her current state. Sweating nervously, he asks her to compose herself because they need to get out of there alive, concluding that she can only avenge her people if she stays alive. Returning to the conversation, the boy comments that her trauma is so severe that she believes herself to be a queen. Ignoring all this, the man says he doesn't care about what they went through and that all that interests him is knowing if their skulls are worth anything. Hearing this absurdity, the boy is shocked. The man remarks that there are only two humans and wonders how they can split the reward among the three, with the other responding that the one who kills first gets everything. Desperate, the hero once again asks them to let the two go. Completely ignoring the request, the soldier prepares to execute him. In the background, someone on a horse tells him to stop. Turning around to see who it is, the man begins to grow nervous, knowing who it is. Terrified, he says that if they find out they weren't on the front lines, they will be punished. Another argues that they aren't part of the same squad, being from the White Dragon squad. Quickly, the man approaches. The unlucky dude just watches everything. Stammering, the soldier says they are part of the Red Squad and asks if they all came to provide support. However, the White Dragon Knight says he heard everything they said and asks them to leave and find their leader. Annoyed, he says he won't tell anyone and pretends not to have seen anything. Trying to argue, the soldier says that he is the leader of the White Squad, and from what he knows, this squad doesn't have as much authority compared to the Red Squad. Suddenly, the long-haired man draws his sword. He says the soldier should already know that he is the leader of this squad and that he has no authority over it, saying that it doesn't matter which squad he's in. He has permission to execute everyone. Staring at the sword's tip and desperate, terrified of dying, the soldier says he understands and that they will all leave immediately. After that, they all start leaving, completely ignoring the duo they were previously threatening. In shock, the protagonist whispers that all the soldiers are gone, but the stronger ones have now shown up. Suddenly, the White Dragon Knight dismounts from his horse. Introducing himself, the man says he is the leader of the White Dragon Knights, named Sophias. Curious, he asks when they were captured by the demon tribe and made into slaves. Awkward but also relieved, the boy laughs, saying that if he had appeared 1 second later, he would probably have lost his life. Suddenly, the sword comes close to his head. Ignoring him, the leader asks the boy to simply answer his question, warning that if he doesn't respond, he'll lose his life right now. Hearing this, the boy is distraught and terrified. Interrupting, Isabella says that if he wants to kill them, he should just do it and stop at the threats. In the background, the boy mutters that she can't keep her mouth shut. Thinking that he could end up dead if he answers wrong, the boy explains that it wasn't long ago, but he doesn't remember exactly and was probably 5 or 6 years old when it happened. This response leaves the leader very surprised. He quickly follows up with another question, asking what their roles were in the demon tribe at that time. Answering, he says he was just a kitchen assistant, while in his mind he wonders what kind of role he could have had, considering he spent his whole life playing games and doing nothing else. Continuing his explanation, he points to the girl and says she is his wife and that she was also enslaved by the demon tribe, just like him. After hearing all the explanations, Sophias says he understands. Nervously laughing, the boy wonders if the knight really believed him. With his hand on his sword, Sophias asks why the boy is walking around half naked. Caught by surprise and totally in shock, the boy thinks it's because he was the queen's servant, which is why he has no clothes, and he wonders how he could be seen this way. The leader begins to take off his white cloak. Shang realizes that something's about to happen. Suddenly, the man places his cloak on the hero, saying that the demon tribe likely took his clothes since he tried to escape several times. Healed, the boy questions why this guy has such a kind aura around him. Showing compassion, the leader says that both of them have been oppressed for too long and asks them to follow him to take them home. Stammering with anger, Isabella asks where he is planning to take the governor of the demon tribe. Meanwhile, the boy next to her whispers for her to shut her mouth. In the background, another knight appears, calling his lord. He explains that both the Red Dragon and Black Dragon squads have already withdrawn their troops and kindly asks him to give his orders. Then the man comments that it seems he's late for the party, and in the background, the two are fighting. The queen warns that if he does anything else, the depressive one will make his life a nightmare. Desperate, the protagonist gently asks her to keep his profile secret, saying that the only thing they can do for now is obey, and the last thing he wants is for his identity to be exposed. Very irritated, the girl explains that returning to the human tribe with these people will make it impossible for her to go back to the demon plains. Frustrated, the boy explains that she's an idiot, and if she's discovered and killed, she can forget about going anywhere at all, reiterating that she must not expose herself under any circumstances. Sophia's comments that if his intervention is not necessary soon, they should be able to go home, asking them to go with him right now. Excited, Xiang cheers for the White Dragon Knights. Sometime later, the knights arrive at the kingdom. On horseback with his wife, the hero is impressed, asking if this is where the human tribe lives and comments that the walls are really high. Irritated, she asks if he really needs to hold on so tightly, and nervously, the boy explains that it's his first time on a horse, so he's a bit scared. This is the capital, located in the south of the main island, where all 4 seasons are present, and there are plenty of resources, making it a very comfortable place to live. These tall walls that the hero commented on earlier are the iris walls, which are lined with cannons providing powerful defense. In addition to the cannons, these same walls are also protected by high-level mages. After passing through the walls, the knights begin to enter the city. Xiang starts to look around, thinking the humans dress completely differently compared to the demon tribe. Everyone bows whenever they encounter a knight, showing that this is truly a place of respect. Sophia calls the boy, who promptly answers. Nervously, he thinks that he cannot let him find out about Isabella's true identity. The man comments that their names are quite strange and asks if it was the demon who renamed them. Smiling, the boy says yes, while in his mind he thinks that it was actually his father who named him. The leader asks if they have no memory of their real names, but the hero explains that he has no recollection since being captured. Continuing the interrogation, Sophia asks if he at least remembers his family, and in front of him a soldier draws his attention. Looking back, he calls for his captain, who says that he also sees it. This is the royal family. Among the guards, a man smiles maniacally. The leader of the White Dragons orders everyone to dismount from their horses and head to the royal palace. Curious, Xiang asks who that guy blocking the soldier's way is, and Isabella replies that based on his clothes, he's probably royalty. Without measuring his words, the hero says that he looks like an idiot to him. Nervously, one of the knights whispers for the hero to stop that, saying that this is the regent's first son. Surprised, the protagonist asks if this is a higher position than the leader of their group. Then the man explains that it's not just that, and that they can't even think of comparing the royal family to their group, as he is the regent's double. Starting to explain about the kingdom, he says that the current king is still young, so before the old king died, he asked the regent to help the new majesty govern. Moreover, the regent has the strongest knight in the entire kingdom, so they can say that he is above all others. Glaring, the assassin Isabella questions what's so special about that guy, saying that if it weren't for her loss of magical power, he wouldn't stand a chance against her, the demon queen. In shock, even the soldier asks her to stop talking such nonsense, saying that they will lose their heads. And Xiang says that it's fine, and if she says anything else, he's going to smack her butt. Bowing, Sophia greets his excellency. Sarcastically, the boy says he thought his father had returned since the gates opened, but apparently, it was just the useless group of the White Dragon. He continues to saying that he had even prepared a welcome party. However, the leader of the White Dragon group interrupts him, saying there's something he's not understanding. He explains that his majesty sent his group to sign a peace treaty with the demon tribe. Then he asks for an explanation as to why the regent went ahead of the group to the place where the treaty was supposed to be signed. The nobleman then explains that it must be because the king decided to kill the demon queen, asking if the man is questioning the decision of his king. Not understanding anything, Sophias tries to explain himself. Suddenly, a man intervenes, saying he was just curious to know if this was truly the king's will or if, in the end, it was only the regent's will. Looking back, Sophias realizes it's his father, the imperial leader called Guru Dita. Surprised, the boy comments that Lord Guru also came and asks if he shouldn't be accompanying his majesty and his studies. Guru comments that he heard the regent had triumphed in his battle, and that's why he came to greet him personally. Sarcastically, the boy says he probably just came to interrogate the regent after all. Laughing, the old bearded man says he wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Impressed, the hero comments that the leader of their group's father is also a big shot in the empire. Then the soldier explains that Master Guru is the only imperial leader of the empire, and he's also one of the people closest to the king. However, he and the regent have different political views, and so both strongly believe in their own convictions. With her eyes closed, Isabella comments that humans are useless because all they do is spend their days arguing and fighting. Next to her, the hero wonders if it wasn't her who ended up being betrayed by one of her own demons too. A soldier prepares to blow a type of trumpet. Several soldiers from the Red Dragon group are playing this instrument to announce something. Smiling, the boy comments that the city gates were opened, and this time it's definitely the regent without his father. Not understanding anything, Xiang asks why they didn't blow the trumpet when they arrived, and the soldier replies that it's because they are just from the White Dragon group. Then the gates finally open as several people bow. Isabella and the hero begin to observe what is coming. When the queen realizes what's happening, she's completely shocked. A man on horseback is holding his lance with a head impaled on it. Seeing this horrifying sight, the woman goes into a trance, starting to cry when suddenly the boy places his hand on her shoulder, telling her not to go over there. Hearing this, she starts to tremble, with her clenched fist trembling too, filled with rage. At this moment, the boy notices something as well. Regent Torst Angus is passing by the two of them. He has a serious and focused expression. Consumed by rage, Isabella declares that she will make him pay with his own blood. The man stops in front of the old imperial leader, asking if Lord Guro came just to welcome him. Smiling, Guro confirms that His Excellency did a good job. Then Guro comments that he fears that, unfortunately, His Excellency will not be able to rest just yet. Continuing, he says he would like both of them to go together right now to meet His Majesty. Smiling, the representative explains that he himself already wanted to report the results to His Majesty, so they should go together soon. Stammering, the boy approaches his father, who calls him by his name, Buri, and with an air of anger, warns that if he pulls another stunt like this, he will wipe out his race. He concludes by telling him to disappear right now while staring at him. Buri gets very nervous and says he understood. After that, the man begins to leave along with the old man. Very nervous, the protagonist tells Isabella that it looks like the guy she wants to kill is a military commander, and the girl asks what he's talking about now. He explains that in his world, he used to have a military commander named Cao Cao, who acted the same way as the representative and ended up manipulating the people around him, and Zofia became the king because of it. But he says that before anything else, they must think of a way to get her out of there. Possessed with rage, the girl says he can bet his stinky behind will get out of here later after she kills him. Suddenly, one of the soldiers calls the two of them. The blonde man says that his leader is now accompanying Master Guro to the palace and has given him the mission to escort both of them to his residence. A bit nervous, the boy accepts the idea. After some time at the residence of the White Dragon Group's leader, impressed, the boy comments that this mansion is huge, asking if the leader makes that much money here, and the queen says he hasn't seen anything yet, calling him human. While observing a statue, he says that this thing is so big it should be in a museum instead of here. A girl appears, saying they must be her master's guests. Accompanied by two others, she introduces herself as Elena and says she is the maid of the house and that her master asked her to take care of both of them. Snorting, the boy thinks that of course that guy would have such beautiful maids, given how rich he is. Smiling, Elena says they must be hungry and tired. In response, the hero says he's starving, while in the background, the demon queen asks if he doesn't find all of this strange. Suspicious, she wonders why they would treat a mere slave so well. The boy argues that if they wanted to hurt them, they would have done it by now, so they should just go with the flow and see where this leads. Agreeing, Isabella says he's right, so they continue on their way, while one of the maids watches with a very suspicious look. Inside the palace, the representative and Guro Dita are in front of their king. Showing respect, the man thanks His Highness, saying that being able to fulfill his wishes and share his responsibilities is enough for him and that therefore he desires no reward. However, the man disagrees, saying that what they did was such a grave offense that it might be deserving of punishment. The old man comments that His Highness ordered them to sign a truce with the queen of the demon tribe and that the White Dragon Group was even dispatched to represent them. However, the regent went ahead of everyone to execute the demon queen. Angry, the old man states that this man not only tarnished the Majesty's name, but will also cause severe repercussions that will be very grave in the future. He asserts that there will be a war if the queen, who is missing, manages to return to the demon tribe, and that the conflict between the two tribes will cause significant loss of lives in the kingdom. Innocently, the king says the man is very sure about this, but believes there must be a good reason for the regent to be in such a rush. At that moment, the man asks His Highness for permission to report everything that happened. He explains that after both tribes signed the truce, he received a letter from Lillian, who was actually the right hand of the demon queen. In this letter, she said she had already received support from most of her people, and that she would form an even stronger alliance between the two tribes if they helped to dethrone Queen Isabella. He says that the demon tribe has already accepted as queen the former queen, who has been missing since the conflict, and that this result speaks for itself. He reveals that the agreement he made with Queen Lillian is clearly written in this contract, kindly asking His Majesty to take a look at the document. One of the servants hands it to the boy, who instantly opens it to read. Just glancing at the document, he's already surprised, telling the man that he has done a good job for the kingdom. Perplexed, Guro says that Osus has controlled the demon tribe for centuries. He questions how a traitor like her could have been crowned so easily and asserts that something is clearly wrong. In response, the king tells the professor that his opinion is no longer necessary at this time. He declares that he will allow the regent to have free rein to proceed with his own plans. Stammering, the old man nervously says he understands. At this moment, the author makes a clear reference to the regent being like Orochimaru, a traitor. With an empty expression, Guro says nothing more. Sometime later, inside a sauna, Isabella is bathing alone in the room. Looking at her hand, she says that even if she returns to the demon tribe now, they will no longer recognize her as queen. She wonders if she should live the rest of her days with these humans. In another room, the protagonist is also taking his bath in the sauna, happy to finally have a moment of relief. However, he interrupts himself, thinking that this is not the time to relax, wondering how he will return to his world. Soon he questions whether he can return to his world using the same ring that brought him here, affirming that he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in this place. Because even though it was interesting at first, it all became irrelevant after seeing the horrifying scene of the soldiers finishing off those warriors. Shaking his head, he says he can't test this hypothesis at all, and that this ring seems to be very important, so he should put it on his finger to protect himself. Suddenly, someone else enters the same sauna. While the protagonist is irritated because he can't get the ring onto his finger no matter what, he realizes that he can only place the ring on his ring finger. In the background, Sophia's calls him. Looking back, Chang says his captain has returned, but when he sees the man without clothes, he is startled. With a calm and serene expression, the leader says nothing. Staring at him, Sophia's comments that he's also here and that soon they should take a bath together since that's the case. Seeing this, the hero thinks he's enormous. Completely in shock, he ends up accepting the idea. The leader is already in the water while the boy is standing aside, thinks it's all very strange, instantly recalling Isabella's question about why they would accept slaves so well. Thinking that Isabella is right to be suspicious of this because this guy is extremely suspicious. Looking at the long-haired man, he notices something, wondering if all those scars on his body are from battles. But he asks if he's being naive because they could also be from something else. Sophia's then asks if he still hasn't gotten used to this place. Startled, the boy wonders what that expression meant and if he's implying something else. Even though he's very embarrassed, he says he's fine. The man says that's good and informs him that tomorrow he will send some people to look for their families. Curious, the boy asks the captain if he's going to help them both find their families. Confirming, the man says yes, but the information they have is not enough to conduct a thorough search. Hearing this, the boy thinks that he made it all up, so it would be quite a surprise if they found someone. With a serious look, the leader questions the boy, asking if he can't remember anything about his relatives. Shang says he suffered a concussion after being captured. He concludes that's why he doesn't remember his past well, while inwardly wondering if the man is capable of finding holes in his story to expose him. Changing the subject, Sophia says that he has a little brother around his age who was captured by the demon tribe years ago, and he's never seen him again. Saying his name is Sophisak, he then asks if by any chance he knew him. Suspicious, the protagonist doesn't know whether to confirm or deny this information. Laughing, he says there were many slaves there, so it would be impossible to know who was who. Curious about the whole story, Sophia asks what they do with the people they capture. Nervous, the hero says they were simply slaves, so they were beaten and abused all the time. However, he explains that he was raised in the kitchen from a young age, so he didn't know much about what happened there. But looking back at the leader, he becomes confused. The man seems a bit sad about the whole situation. Noticing this, Shang says that it seems they were being nice to him to get information about his brother. Suddenly, Sophia says he hopes his brother is still alive, because that way they can reunite someday. Trying to cheer the man up, the protagonist says that although being a slave is terrible, the work there was really good, so he bets that Sophia's must have grown up strong and healthy. Sadly, the leader says that after the treaty was signed, he hoped to be able to ask the demons to free human slaves. Engaged in the conversation, the hero remembers that the human tribe still attacked the demon tribe and wonders if they will still execute the slaves after that. With his hand on his face, Sophia's comments that the regent said the demon tribe already has a new queen and that her name is Lillian, leaving the protagonist completely shocked. He continues saying that the two tribes have already signed a peace treaty, but there's a catch. Surprised, Shang realizes he needs to warn Isabella about this traitor who ended up becoming a queen. The leader explains that the regent is the only person who can negotiate with the demon tribe at this moment. Then the boy says that his leader's father and the regent aren't on good terms, so it will be difficult to ask for his help. The boy is right and Sophia's confirms the story. The leader explains that his father is one of the people His Majesty trusts the most, but still, he can't impose much since, in the end, he's more of a subordinate. He then wonders why the regent would help as he is trying to approach the enemies peacefully. Hearing all this, the hero thinks that this is a very complicated situation. In conclusion, Sophia says that he can't let this get him down. Shang says the leader is a really nice guy and is sure that karma will work in his favor. He affirms that the leader is right to go against his brother. Quickly, Sophia places his hand on the hero's shoulder, surprising him with a gesture. Grateful, the leader says thank you for all the kind words and gently asks him to stop calling him leader or captain, just referring to him as Sophia's. A bit embarrassed and uncomfortable, the boy just agrees to the idea. As night falls in the same palace, Shang is walking down the hallway in slippers, accompanied by the maid Alina, thinking that Isabella was right because he really was hiding something big. Finishing the walk, the maid tells Mr. Xiang Yi that here is his room. Holding the door, he thanks the young woman, who says she hopes he has a good night's sleep. After showing the guest his room, she leaves the area. Embarrassed, the boy says she's amazing, and that he only dreams of being with someone like her. Then he opens the door and finds someone in his room. It's the demon queen Isabella, who is changing at that very moment. Embarrassed, with a nosebleed, he wonders what she's doing in his room now. Upon noticing the hero, she also becomes extremely embarrassed and angry. Closing the door to the room, though, calling the boy a fool, telling him to stop calling her by name because they are being watched. Surprised, the boy says there's no way that's true since he was just having a friendly conversation with Sophia's a little while ago. Annoyed, Isabella explains that she was talking about the maid and calls him an idiot, explaining that the maid has been watching them since they stepped into the mansion. Because in everyone's eyes, they're still slaves of the demon tribe, so they still can't fully trust either of them. Sweating, the hero says she didn't have to put them in the same room. The queen says that's his fault because he wouldn't stop repeating that they were married. Shocked, he asks if she thinks they were put in the same room to see if they're really married. Continuing her reasoning, the girl says that if they find out they're lying, they'll certainly think they're involved with the demon tribe. At that moment, she notices something strange, stating that there's someone outside. It's one of the maids. It's Alina, who is standing in front of their door, approaching the door with her head tilted to listen to everything in detail. To fool the maid about being married, they both start saying many suspicious things. The woman then stays awake and smiles, still standing near the room after hearing all this. Noticing this, the queen says it looks like she's already gone, while the hero continues with these suggestive remarks. Deeply irritated, Isabella says that's enough, and that if he does it again, she'll annihilate him. Excited, Shang suggests that they stop acting and move on to action. Hearing this, the queen simply stays silent. Overcome with fury, she lands a solid punch on the protagonist's head, ordering him to sleep on the floor because she's taking the bed. With a terrifying look, she warns him that she'll wipe him from existence if he dares try anything while she's asleep. Then the hero comments that she's like a tigress without claws, and she responds that if he's brave enough, he should just try his luck. Rubbing his sore cheek, he asks what kind of guy she thinks he is, affirming that he's not that kind of guy and that he's as pure as snow. Afterward, he calls out to Isabella, asking if since she managed to summon him, she can also send him back to his world. Throwing cold water on him, she says she doesn't know how to cast that kind of spell and that not even the high shaman could send him back. After this response, the hero falls silent. He quickly remembers that magic ring and asks Isabella to lend him her ring for a moment. Complying with his request, she hands it over to the boy. He explains that if this ring brought him here, then it might also be able to send him back to his world. Nervously, he decides to test this hypothesis. Clapping his hands, he repeats that he wants to be sent back. He keeps repeating this phrase while looking at the rings. 10 minutes go by and he's still doing the same thing. Frustrated, he questions why it's not working. Disheartened, he wonders if the shaman cursed him after summoning him. The girl explains that the high shaman read some ancient spell scrolls and that only the tribe elders can read them. Soon, the boy concludes that the only way to return to his world is by going to the territory of Monaco. Without much hope, he begins to examine both rings. Looking back, he tells the queen to take her ring back, but he's surprised to see that she's already fallen asleep. She's sleeping very peacefully. Smiling, Chang thinks that she's usually so aggressive and bossy, but seeing her asleep now, she looks quite cute. Someone is watching from the top of a window. It's Sophia's, observing the sky and stars. In the background, one of the maids appears, calling him master. He asks if she's been able to spy on them. Blushing deeply, she confirms that she has and that they have already finished arriving from the demon tribe. At that moment, the man turns and approaches. He quickly grabs her by the waist and pulls her close, warning her that next time she cannot disturb them without his permission. Embarrassed, she explains that she didn't know what to do because this is the first time the master has brought guests to his home. At this moment, Sophia's explains that as soon as he saw the protagonist, he felt a strange bond connecting them, almost as if they were from the same family. Remembering his brother Sophia's, who disappeared, he states that this hero might actually be his own brother. Suddenly, Alina places her hand on his face, saying that it's been a long time since she last saw the master smile. Then he asks if she's happy for him. Without saying anything, she just smiles. Heading straight to the bed, he grabs her wrists, leaving her completely flustered in this situation. Then he asks her to stay here tonight. Very embarrassed, the maid agrees. They begin kissing at that moment, alone in the room with only the bedside lamp on. Time passes, and it's already dawn at the palace. Chang is in a deep sleep. He soon wakes up and starts to open his eyes. He spent the entire night sleeping on the floor. Looking to the side, something catches his attention. Seeing the empty bed, he wonders where Isabella is. Outside the room, someone calls for Master Shang and he opens the door. He realizes it's the maid from the night before. Smiling, she says good morning and hands him a bundle of clothes. She explains that her master personally chose these clothes for him. Amazed, Alina says the clothes look great on the boy. Awful, the hero wonders if this is how people dress in this world. Changing the subject, he asks Alina if she knows where Isabella went. She responds, explaining that she and the master are training in the garden right now. She invites him to join them. Later, the two are walking through the garden. Impressed, the boy thinks that this garden is unbelievably large. He thinks that if the woman wasn't with him right now, he would have already gotten lost. From a distance, he can see Sophia's, who apparently is training with a bow and arrow. The long-haired man is very focused. Then he fires his weapon, hitting the target dead center for the third time in a row. Approaching him, the hero praises him, saying he's really good. He says that he must have a great history of flirting to be so accurate. It's almost scary. Sophia asks if the boy wants to try, but Shang responds that he's fine as his aim isn't as good as his. Surprised, the man explains that Yi Bai, who is actually the queen of the demons, is quite talented. Nearby, Isabella is also training, equally focused on shooting her bow and arrow, also hitting the target perfectly for the third consecutive time. Impressed, the boy thinks that her power may have disappeared, but her skills are still there. He soon recalls when he said she wouldn't be able to defeat them. Nervously, he thinks he was an idiot for saying that at the time. Elena approaches the two, announcing that breakfast is ready. There's freshly brewed coffee, donuts, cake, and all kinds of goodies. Holding his cup of coffee, he comments that they spent some time observing the demon tribe, and he asks if they are already used to life here. Laughing, the boy says that everything is fine and that he's already gotten used to it. Thinking of a way to get out of this place, he comments that everyone has helped them a lot, so they can't keep being a burden. Wiping his mouth, Sophia tells him to stop thinking that way, saying that both of them can live here if they want, and that he's already assigned Elena to take care of them both. He explains that she will teach them how to live comfortably in this kingdom once again. Faking a smile, the boy wonders if he really wants them both to live there forever, starting to think about what all this means. Interrupting the conversation, Isabella explains that he just wants to live on his own again, and that they don't want to cause any more problems for them. Surprised, the man says it's not a problem at all. In fact, they just want to employ both of them in the empire, because they can even get jobs for the two of them. But either way, it would be good if they worked and lived here in this place, because he's dying to try Xianyu's food. Afraid, the hero thinks that he's in big trouble. Suddenly, the demon queen starts yelling, saying that's enough. Slamming her hands on the table, she says she'd rather return to the demon territory than work in the kitchen for the rest of her life. In shock, the boy whispers, asking what she's doing, telling her not to provoke him. Not understanding anything, Sophia wonders what she's talking about. The woman immediately explains that she's heard about how the human kingdom treats people who were part of the demon tribe, because the legends say that in the past, humans were constantly terrorized due to their extremely fragile forms. And because of all the aggression they suffered, humans decided to seek out a dragon that possessed immense power to protect them. This same dragon helped in the construction of villages and cities and also taught humans how to use magic, which ended up creating the dragon emblem that humans use today. The king has 7 armies, and each army has a different colored dragon emblem. The most powerful groups are the Black Dragon Army and the Red Dragon Army. The groups that protect the walls are the purple, green, amber, and gray armies. And the White Dragon Army is part of the king's personal cavalry, is only deployed when there's some civil issue or celebration in some place. So if a citizen wishes to escape poverty, they must do their best to join one of the armies. However, there are only two ways to join one of the armies. The first is by working and improving until you prove your worth. The second is by earning a diploma from the capital School of Honor. The School of Honor has been constantly sending students to serve the king since its creation. And the legends say that the school's headmaster, Vasily Andrei, is around 500 years old, and that he has mastered all the magic of the plains with his powers reaching the level of a god. There are also rumors that if all the teachers from that school joined forces, they could annihilate hundreds of armies. She explains that this is why she wants to study at the School of Honor. No matter if they teach fencing or magic, her only goal is to become strong. Downcast, the protagonist thinks that this must really be the only way they can return to the demon tribe. Sophia asks the girl if she really wants to make that decision. Without hesitation, she responds that she wants revenge, and this answer completely shocks the hero. Curious, the man asks what she's talking about. In his mind, Shang thinks they're going to be in big trouble if she says everything. And taking the lead in the conversation, he replies that yes, they want revenge, because they've been oppressed by the demon tribe for a long time. And the only way for them to get rid of them is by killing them all after they train. Showing excitement, he shouts that they were once slaves. So that way, they will be able to save millions of captives who are currently in their old positions. Striking a classic Sasu pose, the man explains that in that case, he won't allow them to join that school. This scares them, and the hero asks why they can't. Explaining, Sophia says that fighting isn't as easy as they imagine, and asks why they don't just settle down in this place until they find their families. After hearing this response, Shang grabs Sophia's attention, saying that actually there's another reason for all of this. The man with long hair asks what reason would that be. In response, he says that apparently they are still very weak. But if they have the opportunity to study at this so-called School of Honor, they will be able to become stronger or help, saying that his father and the region are fighting for the good of the human tribe and that they also want help in some way, concluding that this is the only way they have to repay everything that's been done for them. At that moment, the boy asks how he can spout all that nonsense and still be so weak. Nervously, the boy thinks he uses every word in his dictionary and hopes it has solved something. In response, the man just stares at him. He quickly pats the boy on both shoulders with his hands. Leaning in, he says he didn't expect him to be worried about him. Instantly, he smiles at the boy. Wondering, the boy thinks the man must be crazy to have believed everything he said. Behind them, Isabella calls for her leader, who explains that they are not royalty nor honored. And beyond that, they're also not ordinary citizens. So the only hope they have of entering the School of Honor is through him. The leader says he can enroll her in the school since she has great potential. And if she studies diligently, she will become a very valuable person to the kingdom. Turning to the hero, he says that in his case, there is still a long way to go. The warden thinks he has a good eye for choosing soldiers because he can measure someone's potential just by looking. Still looking at the boy, the leader explains that perhaps he has more potential in the culinary arts. Crying, the boy thinks the man should forget about him because he's terrible in the kitchen. A while later at the gates, Sophia explains to them that the academy's classes started 2 months ago, so they will only be able to enroll as second-call students. Shang asks if they will go directly into the fencing or magic classes. The man explains that magic and fencing are just 2 of the 9 branches of the academy. Magic, fencing, hand-to-hand combat, and archery are the main branches of the academy. The man explains that magic and fencing are just 2 of the 9 branches of the academy. Both will introduce themselves to their teachers who will guide them through these new branches. After introducing themselves, the teachers will analyze their strengths and weaknesses to then recommend an appropriate branch. The hero comments that he still doesn't know how to do anything, and initially he thinks he's done nothing in his life except play video games and draw. The man explains that each teacher will use a different evaluation method to see which branch you'll fit into. He says that even without much knowledge, as long as you have some determination, you'll be able to pass in one of them. Then he says he'll let his soldier Idio take both of them to their guiding teachers. At that moment, Shang realizes that this soldier is the same assistant who helped them last time. The boy is about to call out to Sophia's, who quickly mounts his horse, asking if the man isn't coming with them. However, the leader explains that he needs to visit His Majesty with his father today, and if they both pass the selection tests, they'll earn accommodations at the academy. But if they don't pass, he'll return to take them back to his house. With arms crossed, the queen thinks the boy is a pathetic mess, while the soldier laughs. However, the protagonist is very determined to make it all work and get into the School of Honor, and that this will actually be his first approval in this world. A while later, inside the School of Honor, several students are sitting on the floor attending the lesson. An old man is going to teach them how to master the Wind Fist. This is the Academy's hand-to-hand combat teacher, named Mike Yasuo. He says that before they learn the Wind Fist, they need to master the strength of shadows. Then he calls on his student Eli, who introduces himself and asks him to demonstrate for the other students. He then throws a stone to the boy, telling him to hold it. Eli obeys, holding a stone in his bandaged hand. After that, the teacher asks him to strike the statue with all his strength. Obeying the order, he walks toward the stone statue, preparing to attack with all his might. He hits the stone statue with full force using only his fist, causing it to crack. It ends up completely splitting in half. He sighs in relief for having succeeded, while in the background, everyone applauds, saying that he's strong and that only Eli could do such a thing. Mike then asks the boy to open his hand. As he opens it, ashes from the stone he was holding begin to pour out. The man explains that his attack was very strong and ended up destroying the stone that was in his hand. He explains that those who wish to master the power of shadows will need to strike without breaking what they hold in their hand. Nervously, the boys in the audience think that this seems difficult and wonder if it's really possible. Eli asks his teacher if something like that really isn't impossible. Ignoring him, the man walks over to the birdcage. Picking up the little bird in his hand, he wonders what the old man is doing, though not everyone can understand him. With the bird in his hand, he walks toward the stone, preparing to strike while a type of dark magic begins to form around his fist. Quickly, he decides to attack with all his strength. Using the shadow energy, he strikes the statue, breaking it into several pieces. The impact is so strong that it creates a shockwave around everyone. The wind becomes so strong that the students have to protect themselves. A large cloud of smoke begins to rise due to the destruction of the rock. From within the smoke, a man emerges. It's the teacher, totally calm and serene, knowing exactly what he's doing. Opening his hand, he shows that the little bird is safe and unharmed. Outraged, the bird wonders what just happened. Desperately, it starts flying away to escape from there. All the students are in shock, wondering how he managed to do that. From a distance, a boy says that was incredible, catching the teacher's attention. Shang is amazed because the man managed to shatter the statue with just one punch. While excited, the teacher asks what they are doing here and now. The student greets Professor Mike, saying it wasn't his intention to disrupt his class. He explains that these are the new students, and they brought them here to take the entrance test. In the background, the boys are amazed because it's a girl. Saying that she's beautiful, one asks if she's going to study here, and another says he doubts it, as boys usually don't enroll in this course. Mike looks at the protagonist, saying he seems to be a student, and Xiang confirms. With a serious expression, Shang tells him to listen carefully, asking if he's really here to learn hand-to-hand combat. Suddenly, Mike activates some kind of ability in his green eyes. Many people around him start to feel something strange happening. Everyone is in shock, not understanding what's going on. As they tremble, the boys say he's unleashed that meditative aura of power again, and that fortunately he did it at the beginning of the year. They wonder how that old man can be so powerful. After unleashing this meditative aura, the man continues to stare at everyone. However, he notices something strange and looks to the side. It's Queen Isabella, arms crossed, asking when they're going to meet the magic and fencing teachers. This comment makes Ashiel uncomfortable, while Professor Mike calls for her attention. Smiling, he says she's going to be an excellent martial artist. With a stern face, the woman apologizes and says she's only interested in learning magic and swordsmanship. At that moment, the old man regrets this decision, but suddenly he notices the protagonist affirming that he also seems fine. In fact, the protagonist is in shock, traumatized, thinking he won't be able to stand for long after that terrifying blast. A soldier tells the boy that he just experienced the frightening power of Master Mike. However, the boy quickly starts to fall backward. The soldier panics while Queen Isabella calls him a weakling. Sometime later that same day, the protagonist is lying on the ground with his eyes closed. Suddenly, he wakes up startled, asking what happened. Wondering where everyone went, Isabella replies that they've already left, calling him trash. The next protagonist speaking tells him he was paralyzed by Master Mike's fearsome blast. Shang says that Mike is unbelievably strong, asking how he manages to do that. The blue-haired student explains that Mike used the fighting technique he developed and that Shang didn't pass the test, but if he wants, he can still teach him. Laughing, the hero says he's not used to getting hurt, so he thinks it's completely fair that he failed. Meanwhile, he thinks that he's just a regular guy, and if he joined the group, he would probably die from exhaustion during training. But he says they can still be friends if he wants, which ends up confusing the student. Extending his hand, Shang says that from today onwards, he will also be studying at the academy. Introducing himself, he says his name is Shang Yi, and that he's the first friend he's made since coming here. In his mind, he thinks that this guy is really strong, so if he keeps this up, he's going to end up being bullied. Greeting him, he says his name is Alex Air, and that since he's so determined to be his friend, he can also just call him Air. He then mentions that he'll be in the combat class if Shang needs anything. At that, Isabella comments that even though he doesn't have any talent, he manages to persuade people into becoming friends. Irritated, the hero asks what she means by persuade, as he just made a friend in a normal way. Not caring much, Ashu explains that since they don't want to learn hand-to-hand combat, the next classes will be in fencing and magic. A little while later, they arrive at the outdoor training area. Several people are shouting together. It's a group of students watching a fight. A sword comes close, but its attack is blocked by a kind of magic shield that pushes the girl with the sword backward. This is the fencing instructor Dorona, who tells Ice not to be so aggressive. This is the magic instructor Wadley Ice, who tells the girl not to be ridiculous. Explaining that these fencing classes always monopolize the training field, she questions how her magic students are supposed to train. She quickly casts some kind of spell at the fencing instructor, who skillfully and precisely dodges everything, saying that she should have mentioned earlier that she wanted to use this place and there was no need to attack. In the background, the students cheer for their respective teachers. Among them is Burris, who says he wants to see some action already, telling her to show the wrath of the fencing class. Suddenly, one of the magic class students says they're ridiculous because they always find a way to monopolize the training field. Others from the same class begin to agree, saying he's right. Meanwhile, a man who appears to be from the magic class is reading a book. Then someone approaches and asks if they can stop this, because he just cleaned the whole place and they're messing up again. The old man just watches the fight between the teachers while continuing to sweep the area. One of the magic instructor's spells hits Dorona's shoulder, and even though her shoulder is injured and bleeding, she doesn't lose her composure. With a maniacal smile, she says that if that's how she wants to play, and they'll play. Charging forward with her colleagues too without hesitation. The two engage in a full frontal combat. Ice conjures a magic shield to protect herself from the sword strike. However, Dorona somehow manages to reposition herself above and behind the magic instructor. Then a series of lightning bolts begin to permeate her sword. Preparing to strike, she explains that Ice provoked her first. Looking back, the mage seems surprised. She quickly conjures a large magic shield to protect her back while Dorona attacks with her lightning-infused magic strike. A large shockwave is produced from the impact of these powerful forces. Dorona's lightning strike ends up being reflected by the shield, heading toward another location. It's headed straight for the old janitor. It gets very, very close to the man, and as he looks to the side, he notices something strange. Coming to his rescue is Shang, the hero, to save him. So he decides to use a burst of energy to leap and save the old man from being completely obliterated by the lightning strike. After saving him, he lands on his back in pain. The magic student who is reading just observes everything, and the teachers are a bit startled by what just happened. Both Xiang and the old man are injured from the incident. Concerned, the boy asks the old man if he's okay. He responds that he's fine and asks if the boy is okay as well. Looking back, the protagonist notices something strange. Then he realizes that the wave of magic is actually on fire. Completely in shock, it dawns on him that if he had been hit by the lightning, he would be dead right now. Suddenly, a sword approaches his eye, startling him. It's Dorona, who claims that he's not a student at this academy, asking if he's trying to infiltrate her classes. Worried, the boy wonders how she figured out he wasn't a student here and begins to explain that she almost hit the old man who was just cleaning the yard. But when he looks to the side, he notices that the old man has disappeared, and he wonders where the guy went. Arguing, he says that the old man was right here just a moment ago. Then someone calls for the fencing teacher. Soldier Achille arrives at the scene, gently asking her not to be so aggressive because he's a friend of Sophia's. Embarrassed, she is happy to see the soldier. Very excited, she asks if Sophia's also came. Looking for the leader, she asks where he's in a very affectionate way. But the soldier explains that he was busy with some tasks, so he couldn't come. Irritated, she asks what he's doing here then, especially with guests. The man explains that they are newly arrived second call students and that they haven't enrolled in any branch yet. Suspicious, she asks if Sophia's approved of this second call student thing. Interjecting into the conversation, she asks if the director is aware of it. Achille explains that the director has already agreed to the leader's request. At that moment, the fencing teacher just observes without saying anything. Looking to the side, she notices the presence of Queen Isabella. Then she sees her noticeably striking bust. At that moment, she feels affronted and embarrassed. Deciding to look away, she quickly begins analyzing her colleague Ace's figure. After a few minutes pass, one of the students comments that it's that really pretty girl. Yura responds that she seems a bit bland. Introducing everyone, Achille says the boy next to him is named Xianji. He then prepares to introduce the girl, but is interrupted. Dorona explains that since they are new, she asks to check their powers first. Confused, the boy asks what she's talking about. Suddenly, the woman thrusts her sword into the ground, asking which of the two will go first. Isabella stands with her arms crossed, not responding. Dorona then asks what they are waiting for. Her colleague approaches with a giant green ball. She brings her hand closer to the magical sphere. Then she slowly shrinks it down in size, until it fits entirely in her hand. Walking toward the demon queen, she offers it, telling her to take it. Zhang approaches the blonde man, catching his attention, asking if that magic ball can measure a person's potential. Surprised, the man asks if the boy doesn't know about threshold power. Scratching his head, the boy explains that he spent most of his life in the demon tribe. In his mind, he wonders if this is so common that even children should know about it. Achille comments that he forgot the boy grew up in the demon tribe and says he'll explain everything properly. Starting the explanation, he says that all beings in this world have something called threshold power inside them. However, this can't be used right away. To be able to use it, one must train their body until they reach what they call the limit point. In this case, that magic ball can reveal the internal threshold power of anyone. Curious about this, the hero asks about this threshold capacity thing. In response, the soldier asks him to imagine threshold power as water and that everyone has a cup inside their bodies. However, the size of this cup varies from person to person, determining how much power each can store. He continues the explanation, saying that this cup of water is the threshold capacity and what it holds is what we call threshold power. Both fencing and magic students need to have a good amount of threshold power, because if their internal strength is too small, they won't be able to accomplish anything. And in the demon tribe, this is called magic power, and the threshold capacity is called the magic well. Thoughtfully, Xiang understands that threshold power is the same as magic power, and threshold capacity is equivalent to the magic well. Suddenly, Isabella arrives, carrying the magic ball. Smitten, the boys say she's very beautiful and suggest she join their class. Seeing this, two girls call them animals. Continuing the explanation, Achille says that if the ball emits a weak glow, it means that Yabai has average power, which is enough to join the magic class. Nervously, the boy asks what will happen if the ball doesn't glow. The blonde man replies that she'll have to give up both sword and magic lessons. At the same time, Dorona thinks that Sophia's only sent this girl because of her striking bust. With arms crossed, she says that she's taking too long and thought she might have some potential. Intervening, the magic class teacher asks her colleague to be quiet, saying that she can feel something. At that moment, a magic ball begins to emit a green glow, and everyone is astonished. It's an emerald green energy radiating directly from the magic ball. Surprised, the teacher asks what is happening. Achille comments that she is impressive, and the hero is also amazed by what he's seeing. Even the academy students are nervous, saying that it's a lot of power and that it's awesome. With a serious expression, the teacher pulls the sphere as if she had some kind of telepathy. With the sphere in her hands, she asks the queen if she has ever received magic lessons before. She replies that she learned some magic, but due to some events, she lost her liminal strength. Analyzing her, AZ thinks that she can't sense liminal power in the girl, but she has immense liminal capacity, something she hasn't seen in millennia. Greeting her, she says that she accepts her, and from now on, she will be her magic teacher. Knowing that she's been accepted, the students start celebrating, saying that this girl has joined their class. A bit upset, Dorona asks her colleague if she doesn't want to reconsider her decision. Smiling, she says that this girl only loses to someone named Renz. Incredulous, Achille says that Yabai is amazing because she made the sphere almost explode with so much light, and the protagonist thinks it's obvious, since she's the queen of demons. Knowing that despite having lost her magical power, she still has immeasurable potential. At that moment, the fencing teacher congratulates her colleague for getting someone so special. Hearing the compliment, Isabella simply ignores it. She moves away from the two of them and walks toward the sword. placing her hand on the hilt. Nervously, Azy says she's already passed her test, asking why she's doing this. Holding the sword, Isabella says she hasn't yet decided if she will study magic or fencing. Laughing, Dorona asks if she's thinking of participating in both magic and fencing classes at the same time. While holding the sword, the girl says that she has already studied fencing with foreigners from the East, but hasn't had many opportunities to put it into practice. At that, Akshil comments to Yubai that the magic teacher was already satisfied with her. Interrupting him, the girl insists that she wants to try. In response, the fencing teacher accepts, saying they'll test her in that case. She then asks who would like to guide the newcomer. Smiling, the regent's son volunteers, telling the girl that she doesn't need to worry because he'll go easy on her. Approaching her, he says they'll see how she handles the sword. In the background, Xiang says it's time to see if she's as ruthless as she claims, which leaves Achil quite confused. Mediating, the teacher makes it clear that this fight is only a test, so the use of liminal power won't be allowed, and the redhead says not to worry because he won't hurt the young girl. The hero starts calling out to Yibai, who asks what he's doing. He explains, saying she needs to be careful because that guy is a pervert, repeating that she needs to be careful, which irritates her quite a bit. Ignoring this, Dorona says they can start the fight. Quickly, Buri leaps. Wielding his sword, he charges at his opponent. He's approaching the girl, who is still standing still. However, he starts to notice her body. Apparently distracted, his strike has no effect. The blow is blocked without her even needing to move. Turning around, the boy prepares to attack again. Showing agility, he jumps over the novice. Now behind her, he tries to attack from behind. However, the queen dodged effortlessly. Then the boy distances himself, commenting that this girl seems to have a few tricks up her sleeve. Watching him, Isabella remains silent. Suddenly, she realizes something. Her strap has been cut, leaving her surprised. Seeing all this, the students say that Shizi is really strong. And inward, they say that's how you fight. Filled with rage, the hero says that this crowd is just a bunch of idiots playing with luck. In front of his opponent, the boy starts laughing. Driving his sword on the ground, he approaches. Smiling madly, he aims for the girl's head. But she manages to dodge again, finding an opening for her attack. Just barely, the regent's son manages to defend himself with his sword. Both move away after the clash. Without hesitation, the Queen of Demons moves to attack. Focused, the boy prepares to defend himself, stretching his sword to its limit. He strikes the girl's sword, but she doesn't give up and continues her assault without showing any fear. Dodging the boy's attack. Without needing to turn around, she attacks with her sword. Quickly, Buri manages to turn around and defend himself, once again moving away from the novice. His eyes widen as he realizes what's coming. With a sharp gaze, the queen moves to attack. She begins to spin clockwise, even wearing platform shoes. Surprised, the fencing instructor begins to understand what kind of technique is being used. Spinning like a beyblade, the girl attacks with her sword intensely. Defending himself, the boy thinks he won't be able to keep up for long at this pace. With the killer already stares at her, an electric current starts to course through his body. This energy travels through his sword, strengthening it. Isabella is startled to see this in front of her. Confident, the boy starts laughing with a maniacal expression, deciding to attack the novice with everything he has due to his upgrade. She manages to defend herself but begins to feel nervous. Watching the entire fight, the protagonist becomes worried. Dominating the battle, the boy starts to smile, releasing a burst of energy towards Isabella. This power approaches the queen. Someone shouts ice field. A type of blue energy begins to emerge from the palm of their hand, forming some kind of magical shield, protecting the novice from the powerful blast. Realizing who it is, the boy starts to get nervous. This is Lian, holding the girl like a kind of charming prince. After staving her, he lands on the ground, asking if she's alright. At that moment, the protagonist touches his shoulder, thanking him for saving his wife. Hearing this, the man becomes curious. All the students are shocked by this information, with many even feeling disappointed. Xiang asks his supposed wife if she's okay, and she responds that his techniques are child's play. Gossiping in the background, the fencing instructor asks Achil if they are really married, and the soldier confirms that they are. Relieved, she smiles, saying that someone should have mentioned this earlier. Then the man realizes that it's because of this instructor that Sophia's didn't want to come along on this trip. Disappointed, Dorona tells the regent's son that she had already warned him not to use his full strength. Very nervous, the boy stammers, saying he only used it to defend himself. Intervening, Az comments that everyone is human, but Lian is someone better than the boy, stronger than he will ever be in his life, saying that this is her apprentice named Torst Lian. She concludes that it seems he's finally found someone of his caliber. The man says he'll do his best to get stronger and stronger. Bowing, he asks Isabella to help him on this path, and seeing this, Chinan feels somewhat uncomfortable. Dorona says it seems she's learned the techniques of Professor Mokia. The girl responds that yes, she has. Mokia is known across the kingdoms as the god of swords. Perplexed, the students realize that she trained with Mokia, and one of them says that explains why she's so strong. The instructor says she also trained with Mokia for a while, and because of that, she can say with certainty that the girl uses his techniques. With her arms crossed, the queen says she understands, but the techniques the instructor used just now were even more powerful, to which the instructor laughs and says she has a good eye. Excited, she says that from today on, the girl will be her student. In response, the students celebrate this fact, saying that their class now has a beauty. From the magic class, a student asks why they're celebrating when the novice hasn't even decided which class to join. Approaching, the hero comments that she's also good at attracting people, and Isabella responds that she just spoke the truth, but that the instructor isn't as good as she used to be in her complete form. However, she managed to become very strong through her own effort. Asa asks her colleague what she meant by her student, because in reality, the girl is going to the magic class. Arguing, Dorona says that she's much better with swords than with magic, and if she joins the other class, she'll end up wasting all her learning potential. The two are fighting, and Akshil comments that it now seems to depend on Yubai's will. However, the girl confesses that she's confused. Engaged, Ace suggests that they should settle it with a fight, and Dorona says she's not afraid of her colleague, asking her to bring it on. Amazed by all this, Shang asks the instructors about his situation, leaving the magic instructor not understanding what he's talking about. Excited, the boy says he wants to be tested as well. Not putting much faith in him, she begins the test, tossing a magic ball to the boy. With it in hand, he exclaims that this is magic. Nervous, he thinks he's waited his whole life for this moment. Curious, he wonders if maybe he has enough power to bring peace to this world, declaring that now he will blind everyone with his light. In the background, a student asks if he must be stronger than that girl, and his peer responds that it's hard to know. 3 minutes pass since then. Someone asks what he's doing, and the student wonders if the hero doesn't have even a little bit of light. Everyone starts whispering about what they're seeing, making Shang even more nervous. Sweating profusely, he wonders why no light is coming from the magic ball. Barry begins mocking the boy, saying that it seems like he's just another piece of trash, and everyone around him starts laughing. Pulling the ball back, the magic teacher asserts that it was clear from the beginning that he was a worthless piece of wood, saying she only did this test so the boy could convince himself of his failure. Not understanding anything, Shang asks what that means, and Axel explains that worthless wood is a special type of wood that can't be used to build houses or even as firewood. So for people without potential, others often give them the title of worthless wood. Stammering, the boy says that means he won't be able to learn fencing or magic. Achille starts to sweat because he doesn't want to give that answer. Then the magic teacher says that if he doesn't have threshold power, he won't be able to cast any kind of magic. Disappointed, Dorona explains that even so, he can learn to handle a sword, but in any case, he won't be able to defeat someone who uses threshold power. At this, the protagonist feels awkward, completely surrounded by the others, wondering if there isn't some other way. Interrupting, the regent's son asks if the newbie still doesn't understand, saying that everyone already told him he's a useless piece of wood and that apparently his brain is useless too, for wanting to continue with this. He concludes that the boy should leave because this academy is not a place for people without brains like him. With his head down, the boy says he now understands, recalling when Sophia's mentioned that maybe his potential was in the culinary arts. With a blank expression, he comments that Sophia's must have known he was worthless wood all along. Suddenly, Isabella calls for his attention. Annoyed, she says she wants to see who called him trash again. Stammering, the boy asks if she wants to fight him again. Changing his expression, Shang smiles, reaching his hand toward the girl's waist. Holding her by the waist, he states that he may be useless wood, but he has his wife to help him. Looking at the queen, he asks if he's right. Embarrassed, she tells him to let her go immediately. The hero suggests that they check out the other branches to see how they work, telling Isabella that she should stay here and study diligently, whether it's the path of the sword or magic. Smiling, he says she just needs to want it, and she'll get whatever she desires. Turning back to the teachers, both continue trying to convince the new student to join their respective classes. The two start leaving while the two teachers are still arguing about the new student. Isabella just observes the protagonist with her arms crossed. Sometime later at the academy, a woman is flying on a broomstick. Shang asks the soldier what they should do now, since he can't use any magic power at all, asking if that means he won't be able to join the school. Achille explains that each branch is different, so the results of one only affect that particular branch, and the important thing is his compatibility. This means he can choose branches that aren't combat-oriented for now. Annoyed, the boy wonders if he'll end up becoming a chef after all. Interrupting, the soldier states that they've arrived at the next branch. Confused, the boy asks what branch this is. The soldier responds that this is the forging branch. Several children are sitting with some kind of clipboard in front of a stage where there's a sword in the middle. Not understanding anything, Xiang wonders if they're drawing. There are several students all drawing the same thing. Looking at their drawings, he says they're all terrible at diagramming. However, he spots a green-haired student who has drawn a completely crooked sword. Shocked, the hero says that looks horrible. Hearing the rude comment, the student asks what he means by that. At that moment, everyone in the room turns to the protagonist. The one of the classes asks which branch he's from and if he's here to cause trouble. Apologizing, Shang says he's just a second call student, and the student says they're busy right now. The hero bows and apologizes, saying he's really sorry. He then asks why blacksmiths are learning to draw and wonders if they should be hammering metal and sharpening blades. Suddenly, someone says the boy seems to know nothing. He quickly turns around to see who it is. It's the blacksmithing professor, as shown Martin. Everyone calls the bald man Mr. Martin. The professor tells them to keep drawing, and in the protagonist's mind, he understands that this guy stands out. The professor then explains that his field can actually create anything. Shang is surprised by this information. During the conversation, the soldier explains that the boy was captured and enslaved by the demon tribe when he was a child, so he knows nothing. Laughing, the man says he understands. Turning around, he suggests showing them how things are forged in the human tribe, heading toward the stage. With his eyes closed, he begins to ascend. In front of the sword, he takes something out of his pocket, revealing it to be a very specific object. It looks a lot like a pen. However, the object begins to grow in size in his hands. Surprised, the hero asks if that is also magic. The man holds the object by the handle as if it were some kind of sword. Instantly, he begins to use it on the ground, drawing a picture of a common sword. Excited, he commands it to awaken. Once the drawing is complete, it begins to glow. A kind of blue light is emanating from the drawing. Seeing all this, the protagonist becomes impressed. A sword begins to emerge from the drawing made by the man. A few seconds later, it's fully formed. Magically, the sword moves toward the man who created it. He holds it by the hilt. In front of everyone, he asks the boy what he thinks and explains that this is how humans create their artistic pieces. Shocked, the boy realizes that the object was actually a brush and asks if it can be used to create anything. Coming down from the stage, the professor says yes, as long as he has enough crystallized gold alloys for it. Nervously, Xiang asks if that was magic, and Martin responds that it wasn't, explaining that this is a blacksmithing class, not a magic class. Holding the sword, Xiang wonders if it's possible to create weapons out of nothing too. Still impressed, he asks the professor if these crystallized gold alloys require magic. Laughing, Martin explains that the crystals already contain magic, so even a child can use them. However, the crystallized alloys are categorized into various types. For example, he says his pen is made of a special type of crystal. That's why he can create an item from absolutely nothing. The boy says that if that's the case, then this thing is very powerful. Getting straight to the point, he asks if this requires liminal strength. Martin starts laughing, saying it doesn't. Stammering, the green-haired student asks what he's talking about. Everyone asks what's so special about liminal strength, and they say they'll never be able to forge like the class does. Achille whispers to the protagonist, asking him to avoid mentioning liminal strength in this place, because most of the people here are vain woods. Excited, the boy shouts that this is awesome. He quickly drops to his knees in the room. Hugging the professor, he begs him to accept him as a student, and Martin, confused, asks what's wrong with him, asking if he wants to learn blacksmithing by any chance. With his eyes gleaming, the boy says that he's also vain wood. Hearing this, everyone around him is surprised. Xiang is calmly drawing something. He manages to create an absurdly realistic drawing of Dorona. Surprised, one of the students comments that she's the fencing teacher. Sweating, the green-haired student says Xiang is good. Walking toward the professor, Xiang says he's finished his drawing. Impressed, Martin says he's really good, and that his skills surpass the minimum required to be in the class. Achille comments that he can't believe how talented the boy is at drawing, and Xiang shyly laughs, saying it was nothing. Changing his expression, Xiang calls his professor, saying that he's not good at anything besides drawing. In response, the professor says that blacksmithing isn't considered as important as the other fields, but those who excel in it will certainly find many uses for it. Excited, the boy wonders if his drawing ability is like a passive skill in this world. He tells his professor that he thinks blacksmithing will easily match the other fields present. He continues, saying that creating things out of nothing just by drawing is an overpowered ability. Joining the conversation, the green-haired student comments that before anything else, Xiang needs to learn about the rules of blacksmithing. He explains that the first rule is that the forge was created to help all beings in the world, so he cannot create anything with malicious intent. The second rule is that he cannot steal materials to create something, and the last rule is that he can only forge non-sentient objects. He concludes that the boy needs to keep these 3 rules in mind. Thoughtful, Xiang thinks that this teacher must be a good person, judging by the 3 rules imposed. Smiling, he thinks that from what he's seeing, he's going to enjoy studying with the man. With that, he places his hands on the ground, gently asking the teacher to accept him as a student. Intervening, Achille comments that he is also a friend of the leader of the White Dragon group, and if the teacher accepts, the leader will honor him appropriately. Impressed, the green-haired man remarks that not only is the boy's craft good, but he is also surrounded by good people. Smiling, Martin says that there's no need for that. Placing his hands on the young man's shoulders, he says he cannot pass up such a talented student. From today on, Xiang will be one of his students. Showing the crystal aura pen, he explains that everyone who joins his class receives one of these. Handing it over, he tells him to take good care of it. Very happy and excited, the hero thinks that this seems to be a magical item. A little while later, in the royal palace, in the king's chamber, the regent stands before his majesty. Observing the man, the boy feels nervous. Angus calls for his highness's attention, stating that they cannot wait any longer, and he kindly asks the boy to give the order. Suddenly, someone interrupts the conversation. It's Sophia's and his father. Happy, the king thinks that help has finally arrived. The old man speaks to his highness, saying he has heard that the regent is seeking an execution order for the minister of agriculture and the leader of the Grey Dragon group. Questioning why he wants to take such an action, Angus explains that he sent an investigation team to verify the rumors about people committing offensive acts within the walls. He continues, saying that they discovered the Minister of Agriculture seems to have gotten very close to the creatures of the eastern region, in addition to discovering that the leader of the Grey Dragon group was giving rations to the enemy tribe. He concludes that mobilizing an army without proper authorization to distribute rations to the enemies is worthy of a punishment of 100 lifetimes in perpetual prison. Kurodita comments that the east is going through a severe drought, and they were already considering offering help to build a path to peace between the tribes, and that if they continue to deliver rations to them, they will save them in a critical moment and build a good relationship between the nations. Hearing this, His Majesty remains silent. Angus continues explaining that the East is full of wild beasts, questioning why they would want a peace agreement. However, the worst part is that they didn't report anything to His Majesty before taking these actions. Irritated, the old man explains that there wasn't time to report anything, as lives were at stake. But Angus says that those beasts are inferior beings, which infuriates the old man. He then calls on His Majesty, who is nervous about the situation. Interrupting, the regent says it's already too late, telling them to bring in the prisoners. Chains appear in the room. These are the prisoners who are chained up. There are several different beings imprisoned by these chains. A type of Orochimaru-like character comments that he captured them and that they were receiving supplies from the army. Surprised, the old man realizes who it is. One of the prisoners is the swordmaster named Mokia. The other is the general commander named Beru. Both salute the regent. Very irritated, he questions why the man went so far. Smiling, Angus tells him to open it. Obeying, one of the prisoners begins to open a box, revealing that inside it is a head. The head of a man who appears to be middle-aged. Seeing this horrifying scene, the king is shocked, as are the old man and his son. Shocked, he asks what the regent has done. To this, the regent explains to His Majesty that she's a kind-hearted person, gently asking her to leave the dirty work in his hands. He explains that the leadership of the Grey Dragon group will be transferred to Sato, and that in a week he will lead an attack using the Black Dragon and Grey Dragon armies with the goal of wiping out the Eastern tribe once and for all. In shock, the two prisoners cannot believe what they just heard. One of them questions Angus, as the man had said he only wanted him and the commander. He had said he would help their people and now questions what he's doing. Hearing all of this, the fake Orochimaru becomes irritated. He begins pulling the chains, quickly moving while holding the chains, which end up hurting him. In response, response, the regent says he never promised anything like that and that they should beg for their lives to his majesty. Mokia says he's pathetic. His comrade tells him to forget about it, because he already mentioned that the human tribe is the most devious of the entire plane and that their hearts are evil. At that moment, the old man watches them, worried because he didn't expect the situation to escalate this much. Shouting to his majesty, he advises them to stop all of this now to avoid further conflict between the two tribes. Hearing this, the boy becomes nervous. In response, the long-haired man laughs. He goes again toward the prisoner's chains. However, Mokia notices something strange. He realizes that he can move again. Furthermore, his threshold power is returning to normal. Worried, the man says they have escaped the chains, calling for their capture. Looking to the side, the prisoner sees his chance, shouting that they still have the audacity to declare war against his tribe. Because of this, their king will pay the price for this affront committed by his subordinates. He quickly charges toward the king, wielding a kind of magic sword. However, someone intervenes in the fight. It's Sophia's protecting his majesty, commenting that he shouldn't be disrespectful in front of his king. After the impact, the monster starts retreating. At that moment, Sophia's prepares for a counterattack. Without hesitation, he strikes the lizard squarely with a blow, announcing that he isn't worthy of his title as master for dying by his sword, asking for permission to let him rest. Injured and trembling, Mokia says nothing. Orochimaru asks his majesty if she's okay. He quickly finishes off the sword master. Seeing this horrifying scene, the king begins to tremble. Besides him, the old man also trembles, but with rage. Irritated, he realizes that this was the regent's plan all along. After that, the man begins to turn to leave, expressing a big smile due to his victory. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the kingdom, the protagonist is walking through the streets with a soldier from the White Dragon group. Suddenly, he sees something different and becomes curious. Seeing a magic portal, he thinks they finally arrived. He comments that these portals look like the ones from video games. Seeing all this, he calls for the soldier, asking where these portals take people. Achiel explains that these portals take academy students close to their residences and that most of them live far away. Therefore, these particular portals serve to take students to the northern residences. The eastern residences are better than the others, so the cost of living there is slightly higher. However, the north is currently facing a public safety crisis due to some incidents, and that's why residential prices in the region are lower than before. Making a simple analysis of everything he heard, Hiro comments that basically the north is the slums and the east is the rich area. Cutting the conversation short, Achiel comments that if Zhang wants to continue studying at this school, he'll have to live on campus from now on. In his mind, the protagonist thinks Sophia's is a nice guy but has strange looks, so he prefers not to return to that house. He tells Achiel that if he wants to go back, he can, and asks him to thank Sophia's for him. Reaching into his pocket, the man says the leader has already prepared everything, handing him a key with a number. Curious, the boy asks where the key is for, and the blonde man explains that if he doesn't like living here, the leader said he can return whenever he wants. But if he decides to stay, he'll help him adjust to the place. He concludes that there's a vacant accommodation in the eastern wing. Excited, the hero thinks that Sophia's is truly a good person, and that when he's back in the demon territory, he'll make an effort to find his missing brother. A while later, elsewhere. Speaking of Sophia's, he's walking with his father. Breaking the silence, he asks if he thinks his majesty will listen to them. Irritated, the old man says that the Minister of Agriculture and the leader of the Grey Dragon group are the best he has at his disposal. So if he wants to remove his trusted men, commenting on his plan, he says he will tear the plains to pieces to prove he is wrong. Both arrive in front of a room with guards. One of them calls for the leader, who asks them to hurry as Lord Guro has matters to discuss with his majesty. Bowing, the man says that his majesty already knew Guro would come and therefore ordered them to wait here outside. Surprised, the old man says that it seems he and his majesty were thinking the same thing. Sophia's is face to face with one of the soldiers. The soldier explains that his majesty has ordered that only Mr. Guro should enter. Curious, Sophia's asks if this is really his majesty's wish. Nodding, the soldier confirms it. As he heads towards the door, his father asks Sophia's to wait for him there. In response, the boy just watches. He sees his father entering the room in question. Once inside, the old man calls out for his majesty. However, he's surprised to see that no one is there. He wonders where the king is. In the background, a man appears, explaining that he made sure his majesty was busy practicing horseback archery and that he won't be returning anytime soon. Looking back, he realizes it's the regent. The man then says that he hopes the old man won't be too shocked by what's about to happen today. Reacting to this, the old man becomes very nervous, unsure of what to do. Sometime later, as the afternoon comes to an end, Sophia's is still standing by the door, waiting for his father to return. He begins to feel a little impatient due to the delay. Suddenly, he notices someone approaching from behind. With a defensive instinct, he turns to see who it is. He realizes it's Sato, who is actually a fake Orochimaru. Curious, he wonders what Sato is doing here. Sato says that the leader always goes into battle leading the White Dragon group. Smiling, he comments that Sophia's might not be aware that the White Dragon army used to be commanded directly by the king. The leader responds by saying that the group was actually formed to protect his majesty, so there's no issue with that. However, Sato explains that the king is still very young, and from now on, it's likely that the regent will be the one giving orders to the White Dragon group. Hearing this, Sophia's becomes extremely confused, but starts to realize that something isn't right. He decides to look around, noticing the guards standing in front of him. They aren't showing any reaction. Angry, the leader begins to understand what's happening. As a result, he starts to move, but the man beside him stops him, saying that if he's thinking of going inside, he'll have to risk his life to do so. Sophia's then asks if they are finally trying to get rid of his father. Without directly answering, Sato places his hand on his face and begins to smile, laughing uncontrollably with no shame in hiding what he's thinking. With a sharp look, Sophia's asks if that's really what's happening. Sato starts yelling, telling the young man to relax because the regent has already taken full control, and all of his movements will be controlled by them from now on. Then the leader of the White Dragon group starts to draw his sword, bringing it close to Sato's neck, who asks why they would kill his father now. Not understanding anything, the boy asks what they're trying to do with his father then. Smiling maniacally, Seto explains that right now the boy is nothing more than the son of the guru, so he has no moral standing to command anyone in this kingdom. He says they need to be realistic because the boy has the potential to be the hero he wants, so why not be content with being just a mediocre leader? Angry, Sophia says he has the nerve to threaten his father in front of him, so he better not ask for mercy when he slashes him to death. Mockingly, the man tells the boy not to worry so much because the regent only wants to show his father the true state of the capital. Confused, the boy asks what he means by the true state of the capital. Walking away, Seto tells the leader to go home and rest, assuring him that the guru will be fine. But if the young man still wants to cut him down, he'd love to see him try right now. However, Sophia's does nothing and just watches. Time passes and it's already night in the kingdom. Now in the eastern residential block of the campus, the protagonist is heading towards his room, thinking that the east block is indeed fancy. This makes him remember the small, shabby place he stayed at in his previous school. He inserts the key to enter the room. Smiling, he finally opens the door. However, he becomes embarrassed when he notices someone else in the room. It's Isabella, wearing her pajamas. In disbelief with his hands covering his eyes, he asks why Isabella is in his room and what she's doing there. He waits for something to happen. Confused, he wonders where the punch is. Surprisingly, she responds that he's seen more than this before, so there's no reason to hit him. The boy says it must have been that guy who placed him in the same room as her, and in his mind he thinks that guy is an angel. Sitting on the bed, she says she still doesn't understand the purpose of these humans, but she acknowledges that they are being well taken care of, because they even have everything prepared for them. Holding a coin, the hero asks how much one of these coins is worth, and Isabella responds that she would say it's enough to buy some feelings. The protagonist comments that since they are far from the central area, he suggests they sneak out for a bit. Arguing, Isabella tells him not to be stupid because the academy is always monitoring its students, and they'll notice if they suddenly disappear. She adds that the magic instructor mentioned that the east and north wings are always protected by a magical field. This field is like some kind of indestructible glass barrier, and even the magic teachers can't break it. It was built both to protect the students and to keep them within the grounds so they can't escape. After hearing this explanation, Zhang asks what they should do from here. Isabella explains that her powers have been completely drained, so she will stay in place trying to recover her strength. She explains that the demon club chooses its leaders based solely on strength, so if she can't recover her powers, there's no point in going back, because they won't accept anyone weak as a leader. Awkwardly, the hero says that sounds tough, but that she doesn't need to worry because she still has him. Smiling, he says he will take her back to her tribe, defeat the traitors, and put her back on the throne. Hearing this, the girl is very surprised. Showing his magical pen, the boy explains that he has already found the perfect branch for him, which is the forging branch, and that if forging is taken seriously, it can become very powerful. After hearing this, the girl becomes interested. Changing the subject, the hero asks Isabella if she chose fencing or magic. She responds that since she wanted to recover her former strength, she chose to study both, and that both teachers ended up accepting her decision in the end. Sitting on the bed, the hero says that it's basically a magical swords master, but the girl looks confused and asks where he got that nonsense from. Explaining, the boy says that a magical swordsman is a class that uses both sword and magic in combat, and he asks if there isn't anyone like that around here. Isabella says that being a magical swordswoman sounds really interesting, but she quickly notices something strange. Asking why the boy is on the bed. Smiling, he tells her to relax because they need to act like they're merry for everyone else. In response, the girl just gets embarrassed. Blushing, she says it's all the protagonist's fault for saying in front of others that she's his wife. Also embarrassed, he thinks that she used to be aggressive and cold most of the time, and that she looks really cute when she's embarrassed. He then explains that he did it to keep those wannabe flirts away from her, because she tends to attract a lot of attention easily. Getting up from the bed, she thanks him, and he tells her to stop that since they're married. Quickly, she points her sword at the hero, telling him to get off the bed. Scared, the boy asks if she's really going to kill her husband. Standing up, she says that she would kill him if he tried to sneak up later. A while later, the boy is sleeping on the floor. Looking at the magical pen, he thinks that this thing makes everything he draws become real, wondering if there's any limit to creating objects. The sun is rising in their room. Isabella starts to wake up, opening her eyes to some strange female silhouette. Seeing this, she becomes fully alert, quickly grabbing her weapon to defend herself. Pointing at the woman, she asks who she is and what she's doing in her room. But upon closer inspection, she realizes it's not a person. Extremely confused by what she's seeing, she then realizes it's actually a statue of herself. Not understanding anything, she wonders where this came from. Noticing something, she looks to her side, coming across various structures made of stone. Seeing all this, she begins to get suspicious, thinking that this must be the work of that idiot. He made everything from dogs to complex weapons. Curious, she asks what these strange things are, and that she must have been really tired yesterday, not to hear all the noise he must have made building all of this. She then decides to leave her room, hearing several people asking what these things are. When she reaches the hall, she comes across a stone sports car. Everyone is questioning what these things are and saying that they're strange objects. Isabella is perplexed by all of this without saying a word. Suddenly, people spot a giant made of stone, and he's enormous, and they wonder who put him there. The girl also notices the giant made of stone. In his mind, he understands that he will need to discipline the boy as soon as he returns. Meanwhile, at the academy, several students from the Forge class are already paying attention to their teacher, who comments that it's getting late and asks where Xiangyi has gone. Diablu offers to go get the student, but Martin says it's not necessary and that the class will start regardless. Suddenly, the boy arrives, apologizing for being late, ringing a kind of small bell as he enters. The protagonist shows up with some sort of bicycle that he must have made himself, passing in front of all the students in the class, who are impressed, including the teacher, who asks what that is. The curious green-haired student asks what that thing is, wondering if it's some new toy for rich boys. In his mind, Xiangyi wonders how he's going to explain this to them. He replies that it's a bicycle, his new invention also known as a pedal bike. Impressed, Martin says he's seen vehicles powered by animal and steam energy in the dwarf tribe. But this is the first time he's seen a vehicle that uses human physical strength to move. Suddenly, some people start calling his name. Amazed by this invention, the students in his class ask if they can try it too. Giving a thumbs up, the hero says of course they can go ahead. Looking to the side, he notices that his teacher has already taken the lead and hopped on the bicycle. Smiling, he apologizes, saying he couldn't control himself. The green-haired student says it's no problem. They can wait. Martin then asks the hero how to use this thing. Grabbing his arm, the boy explains that first he needs to find his balance. He continues, saying that now he should place both feet on the pedals and push forward. Struggling, the man asks to take it easy and pedals first with his left foot, then with his right. The man tries to do this, but starts to fall. Sweating a lot, he says the boy is amazing because this thing is very difficult to control. Shang then explains that it can be a little tricky at first, but once he gets the hang of it, he'll be able to control it quite easily. He teaches him to apply more force and try to go faster, while also being careful with balance. Then he notices that the man is finally getting it. With great difficulty, he asks what the boy is doing there, and the boy responds for him to relax because he needs to go solo to gain experience. Excited, the students cheer on the teacher, who with great effort is managing to ride the bicycle, although he's still struggling a lot to keep his balance without falling. From a distance, Martin tells the boy that it seems he's gotten the hang of it and won't stop moving. Proud, the protagonist says he picks things up so quickly, saying he's proud of that boy. The students then say that this thing called a bicycle is very surprising and that this invention might influence countless future generations. In his mind, the hero thinks that when he invents the combustion engine, he'll become the most famous person in the world. However, the teacher asks how to equip this thing. Suddenly, the hero realizes that he forgot to design the brakes for the bicycle. Afraid, he yells for the teacher to stop pedaling, but the man doesn't hear him and asks what he said. He crashes into a tree, scaring the birds. Drying himself off, he apologizes, saying he played too much and it ended up this way. The shocked students think it's all the teacher's fault because it was such an amazing invention and now it's all wrecked. A total waste. Seeing all the disappointed students, the teacher apologizes again. Calming everyone down, Xiang says they can relax because he can design a better one than this. Everyone is surprised and Martin asks what he's waiting for, telling him to draw it quickly. Nervously, the boy explains that he can't draw right now because he's used up all of his energy from the crystallized gold alloy. This information shocks everyone and the teacher asks if he used all the stones in just one night. The green-haired, glasses-wearing student explains that those stones were enough to build an entire house. However, the hero explains that he was doing some experiments the night before. In his mind, he thinks that he obviously can't tell them what he was drawing because the pen's functions are activated via thought, so the properties and shapes are generated based on his own thoughts. Thus, he only needs to draw simple outlines to create whatever he wants. He wonders how this world will change if he brings inventions from his own world to it. However, the professor warned him that he needs a high-grade gold alloy to create larger and more complex structures out of nothing, and that the starter stone he received requires the same type of raw material normally used to create an item. So the first thing he drew was a cell phone, but the phone he created ended up being completely useless, because he doesn't have the necessary knowledge to understand the material components required to make one. As a result, he will never be able to build a functional phone. After that, he tried making a TV, a refrigerator, a car, and other things, but nothing worked. Because to create these items with the stone he has, raw materials are needed. So the question is how he's going to overcome this problem. After the explanation, the professor says that he then tried to create various experimental things and the boy laughs. Excited, his classmate asks what he drew. Laughing, the hero replies that he shouldn't even ask as all of his attempts were failures. Sometime later in the blacksmithing class, the students arrive in the room with their professor. Martin goes to a type of chest to get something. He pulls out a glowing stone from it, inserting it into the magic pen. Then he comments that they're running out of stones. Handing it to Xiang, he tells him to use it wisely. The boy is the only one happy because now he can continue with his experiments. In class, Martin says that he makes them all draw in order to become better blacksmiths. And today he's going to teach them how to differentiate the different types of crystallized gold alloys and all their capacities. The protagonist is stunned by this information and his classmates pull him to sit down. Acid and Martin then take out a suitcase, pressing a red button that is exposed. Suddenly, it opens, revealing several pens inside. Below this compartment are various stones. Shine Ai has other types of things that also seem magical. It's a very complete suitcase. The professor asks the students if they know why they put the stones in pens instead of using them directly to forge. A student with glasses responds that it's because the power of the stones is too great, making them hard to control if used directly. And besides that, it could also cause serious harm to the user. Smiling, the professor says he's right. He explains that 2 decades ago, he went to the dwarf tribe to improve his blacksmithing technique. At that time, they had already incorporated the stones into their hammers to be able to forge. The item that was forged with that tool was not only dazzling, but also very durable. However, it caused serious harm to the body of whoever used it. So over time, he decided to improve the stones so that they could be incorporated into smaller tools. After much time and research, he finally found a great way to control the power of the stones, resulting in the creation of objects via drawing. In his mind, the hero wonders if this is the essence of blacksmithing and why he feels like something is missing. Raising his hand, he asks his professor where the crystallized gold alloys are extracted from. The professor replies that they come from a stone mine on the eastern border and that all the stones they use come from there. The glasses-wearing student says that mine is also home to the earth dragon. Another student says that dragon is particularly dangerous compared to other creatures. Nervous, the boy wonders if they manage to kill that dragon, how many stones they will be able to get. Martin explains that this is exactly why his magic Majesty deployed the purple driving group to extract the materials from there, because they are responsible for extracting and refining the stones, and after that, they sell them to raise military funds. After the explanation, he picks up a stone, saying that this stone here in his hand is worth around 10 gold coins. Everyone is astonished, and one of the students says they've been carrying 10 gold coins all this time. Not understanding anything, Xiang asks what he can buy with 1 gold coin. The boy explains that 1 gold coin can be exchanged for 10 silver coins, which doesn't help the protagonist much. So he asks how much food he can buy with 1 gold coin and how many people he could feed with one. In response, the boy says that 1 gold coin would be enough to buy 50 sacks of food, and 1 sack is enough to sustain an adult for a month. Thoughtfully, he understands that if 1 gold coin equals 50 sacks of food, it means he could sustain 50 people for a month. Suddenly, he's in shock, processing the information. Nervously, the boy with glasses says that this means you spent what 500 people would spend on food in a month in just one night. Observing the stone, Martin explains that these crystallized stones belong to the lowest rank of the crystallized gold leagues. The crystallized stones are of low quality. Mid-level stones and above cost over 50 gold coins. These stones are equivalent to 3 low-rank stones, so their magic is equal to the magic of 3 low-rank stones. However, their only benefit is that they are more efficient than low-rank stones. Additionally, they have an extra function that increases their market value. However, the professor explains that they don't find much use for that extra function. Continuing the presentation, he begins talking about high-ranking gold leagues. Everyone gets excited because if mid-ranking ones already cost 50 gold coins, they start wondering how much a high-ranking one must cost. Martin explains that these are rarely found. The bluish stone is called the aquatic magic stone, currently costing 100 gold coins. This information shocks all the students as it's something very expensive. The aquatic magic stone contains the elements of water and wood, and you can use any piece of wood as raw material, resulting in a high-quality object. It can generally be used for repairs and wooden items. The purple stone is called the purple lightning stone and contains the element of electricity. This stone is used to cut objects and calibrate items, and its market value is around 300 gold coins. Lastly, the red stone is called crystallized firestone. Its native elements are fire and metal, and it can transform any raw material into metal. It also strengthens metallic objects and currently costs around 500 gold coins. The students are amazed, asking if the professor is rich because they've never seen so much money in one place. They comment that these items are expensive and therefore not used very often. He says that wealthy mages often place these stones at the top of their staffs. When they run out of magic, the crystallized firestone generates fireballs. The purple lightning stone conjures a lightning storm, and the aquatic magic stone conjures water waves. The protagonist especially thinks that even someone without great power could use magic if they had one of these stones. Near the end of the presentation, Martin says he's finally going to talk about the gray moonstone that's in his pen. Smiling, he says this one belongs to the group of ultra-rare stones, and he is the only one in the entire human tribe to possess one. Everyone's jaws drop a little, and the green-haired student says this thing must be worth more than 10,000 gold coins. The hero, in turn, thinks that stone doesn't need any material to forge items and becomes very interested, wondering what he could do if he had a stone like that and thinking he could dominate the entire world. Martin explains that when he was young, he studied forging with the dwarves, and that the dwarf tribe is located in a secluded and difficult-to-access region. They also don't usually communicate much with other tribes. However, after seeing his determination to learn about forging, they ended up accepting him as one of their students. While in the dwarf tribe, he earned the trust and friendship of everyone there. They even developed a new forging method together. The dwarf tribe only had 4 gray moonstones, and thanks to all of his achievements, they gave him one. He concludes that with this stone, he built the walls that surround the kingdom. Surprised, the boy with glasses says that stone must have been a really expensive gift. Sweating, the protagonist thinks that if this stone is so powerful, doesn't that mean the dwarf tribe is more powerful than the demon tribe? Responding, the professor says the power of the gray moonstone is infinite, doesn't require any material, and has no usage limit. But he adds that the price of this stone is truly very high as it drains the user's consciousness. Not understanding, the protagonist wonders what he means by consciousness. Raising his hand, someone asks the professor if forging in this way wouldn't cause certain damage. The green-haired boy then comments that their professor has already suffered a lot for the sake of their kingdom. Pointing to the board, he says they just need to look at that picture. All the students are surprised because the guy in the photo is a handsome man and looks nothing like the professor. But he comments that it seems everyone still doesn't understand, because that photo is indeed of the professor of this class. The protagonist, shocked, says that can't be true because the only thing the professor has in common with the man in the picture is the eyebrows. However, he ends up confirming, saying that it's true, that the man in the picture is really him. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the kingdom, Sophia is completely alone waiting for something. Then she notices something approaching. It's a black and gold carriage being pulled by several horses. The carriage stops right in front of her. From inside it, her father begins to emerge, trembling and seemingly unable to walk. Quickly, the son rushes over to the man. Suddenly, the old man starts to collapse. Holding him up, Sophia asks her father what's wrong with him. In complete silence, the man says absolutely nothing. Worried, his son asks if someone hurt him, but his father pushes him away, telling him to leave him alone, shouting that it's over and now everything is truly finished. With his hair covering his eyes, he says it's over. Completely defeated, he repeats again that everything is over for good. The old man starts to laugh, which worries his son even more. Returning to the question, Sophia again asks what they did to his father. Laughing, the old man responds that no one will be able to change it. Sometime later, in a kind of gymnasium, Isabella is practicing her fencing blindfolded. Behind her, several arrows start flying in her direction. Quickly, she senses them preparing to spin around, striking the 3 arrows with her sword. However, in less than a second, 3 more appear beside her. With excellent perception, Isabella notices the arrows at her side as well, and with a very skillful movement, she destroys the 3 arrows quickly and effectively, while her fencing teacher observes everything, congratulating her, saying that she did very well. Sweating, the demon queen starts to take off her blindfold. In her mind, she thinks she should be much stronger than this, and that she's feeling more tired when she moves. Dorona just watches her prodigious student. Noticing the cut on her arm, she extends her hand, advising her to remember to always practice at home, because she only studies fencing half the necessary time compared to the others who end up getting scared. The girl responds, saying she understands and will practice more. The sun is already setting, and the day is nearing its end. The demon queen finally arrives in her room. Opening her eyes, she notices something strange. Seeing Professors Dorona and Wadley and Bikinis in her room, the girl asks what they're doing in her room right now, but she doesn't get any response or interaction. Curious, she touches one of the teachers. Confused, she states that they are stone statues. Hidden in the corner, the protagonist asks if it looks good. She asks how he managed to color the stone statues, and he responds that you just have to paint the materials before forging. That way the statues will come out already colored. Squatting on the floor, he asks her to wait, because the future will create things she can't even imagine. Isabella then goes to the floor to pick up one of the sheets. Looking at one of the hero's projects, she asks what all of this is. Shang explains that this is a project his teacher Martin gave him. These are diagrams he brought from the dwarf tribe. He explains that apparently the wisdom of the dwarves even surpasses that of the demons, and that they already discovered a steam engine and are using it in trains. Smiling, he says he's very lucky, because the teacher gave him these diagrams after seeing that he was interested in testing these ideas. Instantly, Isabella kicks the hero in the rear, asking if he's not afraid of exposing selectivity or creating all these structures. In pain, the boy explains that there's no reason to be afraid, because no one in this world knows he's actually forging. But the girl insists that this is a bad idea and starts pulling on his ear, asking what that statue of her on the bed was about yesterday, and questioning what he intended by putting that kind of expression on it. Crying from the pain, the boy explains that he just wanted to see if he could materialize his drawings. Pointing to the statue of the teachers, she asks if he had already done that, so why did he make the other statues? Stammering, the boy says he wanted to experiment with colors. Then he looks at his companion to see if the answer worked. Preparing to hit him, she calls him human trash and he stammers, asking to let him explain. Without hesitation, she starts hitting the boy. Then a day passes. Shang is completely beaten up after being hit. While riding a bicycle around the academy, he thinks he's already figured out how the steam engine works, and that if he can change its shape, maybe he can build a car for himself. He also thinks that if he keeps developing it, he might even be able to create some kind of giant robot, like a mecha. That way, one day that woman will recognize his full potential. Arriving at the school, he notices a crowd of people. Several students from his class are gathered together. The green-haired student notices the protagonist's presence. Shang asks what's going on. Then Joko explains that their professor went to the mine. What happened is that last night the professor and he went to the Purple Dragon base to buy some new stones. However, they had no idea that the prices had gone up so much. When Martin heard the price, he asked what they said. They told him that the price of all the alloy stones had tripled. The man in front of him confirmed that it was true. But since it was for Professor Martin, outraged Professor Martin said that the crystallized gold alloys are the kingdom's most important resource, and that if prices rise like this, how will blacksmiths survive? A student behind him agreed. He said that until now they had followed Professor Martin's guidelines to keep prices affordable for people. The professor continued saying that the prices were set by the former leader of the Purple Dragon group. But the man in front of him replied that the previous leader had been branded a traitor, and asked if the professor intended to end up like him. At that moment, the new leader of the Purple Dragon group just propped his feet up on the table while two guards protected him. Smiling, he said that the professor had lived too long within the kingdom's walls, and that he didn't know what was happening outside them. He explained that His Majesty's troops were attacking the Eastern tribe, and they needed a large amount of funds to sustain the war. The man continued saying that if they could raise the price of the stones, they could also raise the prices of their services. One of the students whispered that it seemed they had no choice, but Professor Martin was boiling with rage. At the end of the story, Jockless explained that after this confrontation, the professor went alone to explore the mine. Nervous, Shang asked if they hadn't said the mine was full of dangerous monsters, so would the professor be able to handle it? The students replied that they had never seen the professor fight. The green-haired student commented that Martin was just a blacksmithing teacher, so how could he defeat a dragon? Another student remembered that Martin had already mentioned the high price of the stones, but no one imagined it would increase even more. The green-haired student added that Martin was sacrificing himself again for the kingdom. The hero said they needed to stop the professor from doing something reckless. He claimed that he would try to find the magic teachers to help, but the green-haired student threw cold water on the idea, saying that the teachers weren't around, because the kingdom held a hunt every spring, and the teachers had to go to His Majesty to receive the rules. Shocked, Shang asked if this event had to be today, and his friend replied that it did. Turning around, Shang said his only hope was Sophia's. However, his friend explained that the White Dragon group was also on the hunt. Frustrated, the hero complained that they couldn't do this, couldn't do that. So what could they do after all? Thinking about the professor, who has such a kind soul, they couldn't let him get hurt. Suddenly, everything started to tremble. All the students felt the ground shake. The protagonist asked if it was an earthquake. Looking to the side, he noticed a familiar figure. Ellie was walking towards them carrying a huge stone. He's a very strong student and was smiling. Nervous, the hero commented that it was him. Ellie dropped the stone on the ground with a thud. A cloud of dust rose, making everyone cough. The blue-haired student said these were the materials for the month, but the green-haired student explained that Mr. Martin wasn't there and asked if they could pay him when he returned. Beating his chest, the boy said it wasn't a problem because that professor could be trusted. Waving, he said he was leaving now, but Shang grabbed his arm, stopping him from leaving. He asked if the student wanted to earn a little more money. While holding a bag of coins, he told the green-haired student to take him to the Purple Dragon group's base, and that he wants to buy high-level crystallized gold threads. Confused, his colleague asks why he wants to buy those stones. Meanwhile, in another part of the kingdom, 4 soldiers are sitting together at a table talking. One of them asks if that crazy Martin really went, and his colleague confirms that yes, he did. Laughing, he says that Martin went to collect the stones on his own. Another soldier starts laughing as well, saying that Martin is an idiot and will end up being eaten by the dragon. But he adds that Martin is a professor at the school, so he must have some tricks up his sleeve. With a suspicious smile, he says that even if Martin defeats the dragon, he'll still have to get past them. Suddenly, a wheel with a lot of energy around it appears. This catches the attention of one of the soldiers, who points it out to his colleagues. He asks what that thing is coming toward them. It's a complete car made by the protagonist. All the guards are in shock, asking what kind of monster that is. When the car passes by, everyone is extremely frightened, saying there's a monster inside the walls and that they need to alert their leader. Inside the car is the hero and his group. He asks if he can slow down, and the boy with the glasses asks if he created that thing based on the steam engine diagrams. Explaining, Xiang says that it's called a car and that he made some improvements. He made the car fully electric. Surprised, the student asks if he bought those purple stones to power the thing. Xiang responds yes and compliments his colleague, saying he's smart when he wants to be. But Xiang says he'll need their help to rescue Professor Martin. Scared, his colleague points ahead and tells him to watch the road. Isabella warns him to stop looking back and focus on driving. Excited, Xiang tells everyone to hold on tight because he's going to speed up. Meanwhile, somewhere else at the gold alloy mine, someone arrives at the location. It's Professor Martin, the forge teacher. The mine's guards spot him. One of them asks who he is and what he's doing there. Martin responds that he's the forge professor at the Royal Academy, explaining that he came to collect alloy stones and take them back to the school to continue teaching his students. Another guard comments that his leader already knows the rules. Only authorized people from the Purple Dragon group are allowed to enter the mine and collect resources. He asks if Martin is really going to challenge them. Walking toward the mine, Martin ignores them. One of the guards says to just let it go. After all, what can he achieve by himself in there? Sometime later, the professor is already inside the very dark mine. He thinks that if he follows the excavation route, he will be able to find some stones. Some shiny objects on the ceiling catch his attention. Amazed, he comments that the mine seems to have a good amount of minerals, remembering that they said it would be difficult to collect these stones. The professor concludes that they said that just to justify the price increases. Suddenly, something makes a noise behind him. Martin turns around. Out of nowhere, some kind of large monster appears, a type of giant beetle. Martin realizes that it's actually a land dragon that immediately roars in anger and charges at him. He starts sweating nervously at the sight of the monster in front of him. Meanwhile, the students are in the car on their way to rescue him. The boy with glasses explains that the mine entrance is just ahead. The group finally arrives at the location. Everyone gets out of the car, and Xiang says that since they didn't see the professor along the way, it means he must already be inside the mine. Isabella seems to have a headache and thinks that her tolerance for this kind of situation has decreased. The hero notices that something is wrong and asks Helio if he's okay, explaining that they'll have to fight soon. The student replies that he'll be fine after resting for a bit. Then Xiang calls for the demon queen, asking if she can handle the land dragon. She responds that in the demon lands they used to eat them roasted. The boy gets excited by the answer, telling everyone to find the professor quickly. Suddenly, something comes from inside the cave. A huge cloud of dust hits them. With his eyes closed, the boy asks what's happening. Opening one of his eyes, he notices something different. He sees a figure inside the smoke. It's Professor Martin carrying a wheelbarrow full of precious stones. With a weapon in his arm, he's covered in injuries. He asks what everyone is doing there. Concerned, one of the students asks if he's hurt. Laughing, Marty responds that he's fine, saying he can still handle small things like those. He comments that he killed all the earth dragons. Xiang then calls for the forge teacher. Amazed, he asks if the weapon the professor is holding is a new invention. Sweating, Marty explains that it's a steam ejector invented by the dwarves. The green-haired student begins to cry with emotion, saying that it's wonderful. Approaching the cart, he notices the amount of stones and says that with them, they'll be able to collect their own stones from now on without needing to buy more. However, Marty explains that they still can't use them like that because they need to be refined. He mentions that there's a refinery class at the school and suggests asking them for help. With his arms crossed, Xiang comments that the professor was already considering this possibility. The hero adds that he always suspected that the refinery class teacher was up to no good and in cahoots with the leader of the Purple Dragon group. The professor then confirms his suspicions. Suddenly, Isabella notices someone approaching and comments that it seems they have company. It's the troops of the Purple Dragon group arriving at the scene. The green-haired student, terrified, says there are many of them. Quickly, the group is surrounded by the soldiers of the Purple Dragon. Nervously, Xiang comments that they don't seem willing to negotiate. A man with a strange pompadour appears in the middle of them, saying he must admit that Marty is brave. He asks if they hadn't already been warned that this area is under the protection of the Purple Dragon group. Xiang asks who he is, and Marty responds that it's Yalo, the teacher of the refinery class. Yalo comments that he thought resource gathering was extremely risky, but those earth dragons can barely be considered hostile, and he managed to extract all that by himself, accusing them of fabricating lies to inflate prices. He continues saying that meanwhile, the people of the kingdom are killing themselves working, needing to come together. The equivalent of 30,000 in work just to have a roof over their heads, and in return, they're selling low-ranked stones at an exorbitant price. He adds that ordinary people need to work countless jobs just to afford one. Thoughtfully, the hero realizes that this is very different from his real world, and that it also seems difficult to buy a house with similar production models appearing. Indignant, Marty says he'll inform his majesty about this, and that they no longer need them to collect the crystallized gold liquids. Smiling, the refinery teacher says that even if he tells his majesty and gets permission to extract them, how does he plan to refine the stones to use? Nervous, the man thinks he shouldn't have left the dwarf tribes so quickly and should have finished learning the refinery arts first. With his arms crossed, a boy says it's not a problem if they can't refine them, because after this, they're heading straight to the dwarf tribe to learn how to refine. But he has a question to ask first, asking if they're just raising prices to sustain military expenses. He states that it's because of crooks like them that prices in the capital have skyrocketed. Mocking, the man asks if he doesn't feel more responsibility toward the lower class. so why should he even listen to them, asking if they even know who the people behind all this are. He confesses that he knew they were going to let them go, but now he'll have to bury them all here. After saying this, all of his soldiers approach the group. Irritated, Martin says it's all his fault and that he didn't imagine he'd put them all in danger by doing this. But the boy explains that if the professor is in danger, of course they would come to help. Even scared, Diablo says the boy is right but admits it's his fault because he brought them all to help him. Smiling, the bald man says he's grateful to all of them. Interrupting the pleasant conversation, Yellow orders all the soldiers to advance. Obeying their leader's command, they all rush toward the group. Then the protagonist calls for Yubai, who is actually the demon queen. He asks her if she still remembers the plan, and Yellow says that he does. They just need to leave an area clear for him. At this moment, the soldiers approach the demon queen, who remains calm and serene. Grabbing her sword, she prepares for battle, landing strong blows on two of the purple dragon soldiers at the same time. Meanwhile, he is preparing to use his ability. An orange light starts to emanate from his fists as he keeps repeating the word focus. With a sharp look, he feels that now he's ready, attacking all the soldiers with his shockwave ability. But it's not only the students who are fighting. The professor is using his steam weapon as well to help, firing a kind of cannon shot or flamethrower that hits all the soldiers around him, throwing them away with extreme ease and making them fall to the ground. Others who aren't standing are scared, seeing that they are strong, and another questions if they are really just students. The surprised one with glasses says he had no idea the professor was this strong. In shock, he asks Shang how he can design such armor, and the hero says he's going to test something, affirming that if he manages to make this work, the forging branch will become one of the most powerful in the entire academy. He starts to make a strike with the wind element in his right arm. At the same time, he manages to conjure some kind of ability using electricity elements in his left arm, quickly combining both while the hit form is out of control, creating a type of tornado called Thunder Impact and hitting all the opponents nearby. Not far behind him, Isabella is also attacking her opponents with only a sword. She manages to defeat them all without any difficulty. Looking back, she analyzes her colleague's strike. He prepares to attack using his right fist charged with electricity. Suddenly, he notices something strange. He stuck his foot in some kind of weird radioactive puddle and asks what that thing is. His foot is completely trapped in the puddle, which quickly manages to envelop him as if it were some kind of slime. In the background, we can see the refinery professor, who smiles upon seeing that his ability is really taking effect. Without hesitation, he starts throwing several slimes toward the other boy, who quickly turns to defend himself, landing a series of punches on these slimes, preventing them from hitting him. He is completely focused on not losing. One of the slimes approaches his fist, and it quickly destroys it with just one punch. However, they stick to his whole body, preventing him from moving on his own. And more they are covering his entire body. Realizing this, Martin calls his student's attention, who quickly starts using the fire fist ability to see if he can escape. However, it has no effect as the slime remains intact. Nervous, he states that this thing is also heat resistant. Smiling, Yalu explains that his slime is artificial, resistant to electricity and fire. Conjuring another ability, he says he will now try something different, throwing some kind of strange purple slime toward the student. However, someone manages to save him just in time. It was Professor Martin using his arm, which is equipped with a weapon. Looking at his weapon, he realizes it was corrosive liquid. Confused, he questions Yalu why he's going so far. In response, the man says that he's already told them that everyone will die here now. But suddenly, he feels a hit. Isabella managed to cut his leg with her sword without the man noticing. In the background, he praises her, saying it was beautiful. However, the man simply laughs despite being hit, charging toward the girl who has her back turned. Due to her great agility, she manages to turn around quickly, completely dodging the slime attack. The professor has half of his body covered with his green slime. In fact, it seems more like he's entirely made of slime, and that's precisely what Professor Martin ends up testing in the end. Then someone appears with that specific laugh. There are several Yalas laughing at the same time, with no one able to identify who the real one is. One of them then asks the group to guess who the real Yalu is in the end. Annoyed, Isabella thinks that if she had the powers of that worm, it wouldn't be a problem. Excited, the professor says it's time to finish them all. There are several Yalas facing the group of heroes. She is still trapped in the slime trap. Martin is nervous, not knowing what to do. Isabella is calm and completely focused on the fight. Meanwhile, the green-haired student is desperate, crying a lot. When suddenly the protagonist announces that he's finished. Crying, the green-haired student says to his mother that it seems he won't be able to take care of her when she's old. Suddenly, his body starts shaking a lot. Looking down, he notices that the ground is cracking and panic sets in. Everyone around starts trembling and Martin wonders if it's an earthquake. Confused, Gyolu asks what's going on. He falls on his butt, seeing all the ground being destroyed. Very scared, he warns his colleague Chang Yi to be careful. A huge rock flies over the boy, hitting right in front of him while he screams in fear. Looking back, Professor Martin asks what's happening. The green-haired student states that Shang Yi is trapped under those rocks. Everyone starts looking at the scene. Irritated, Yalu says they're going to die now, launching a huge amount of slimes toward their opponents. Martin, Yalu, and Isabella notice the incoming attack from the refinery professor. However, the green-haired student is still on the ground, unaware that he's about to be hit. At that moment, the protagonist shouts steam cannon. A strange sound can be heard coming from inside one of the rocks. It's a robotic hand that's about to launch some kind of attack, firing a blast of fire that passes close to a student who's utterly terrified by it. The fire blast is very large and powerful. As it passes the trio, it also frightens them. It heads straight for the refinery professor, who's obviously very alarmed by the hero's attack. Deciding to protect himself, he creates a slime barrier. Several slimes that were launched earlier begin to return to him. Looking back, he realizes something. His corrosive slimes hit his own soldiers, defeating many of them in the process. Nervous, The man wonders what that thing is. The fire blast seems to pause and Martin stammers, asking what that thing is. Looking more closely, the green-haired colleague is terrified, staring intently at the hand sticking out of the rock. Suddenly, the hand disappears, scaring the boy again. When he looks again, he notices two glowing green eyes. Frightened, the boy starts running, shouting that it's a land dragon and that everyone should flee. However, Martin explains that it's not a land dragon. Then one of the rocks starts to fall and a robotic leg appears from within. Curious, Isabella wonders what the hero has done. Seeing this, Martin also grows nervous and the green-haired student is already completely confused, not understanding what's happening. Stammering, Yalu asks if that's a demon from the demon tribe. Placing its hand on one of the rocks, the creature begins to emerge, revealing itself to be a gigantic Megazord-like figure. Inside the Megazord, Shang is controlling it as if it were a video game Joy-Con, saying that the people of this world can start trembling now. Smiling, he declares that he's going to give them a small taste of what magic and modern technology can do together. Perplexed, the knights realize it's a giant and one of them asks how they're supposed to fight it. Also scared, the refinery professor tells them not to worry because he's there. At that exact moment, someone calls out to Mr. Yalu, asking what happened to all the bravado from before. Relieved, the group realizes it's Xiang Yi, recognizing him by his voice. Amazed, Isabella wonders if that's one of the machines from the other world. Excited, his colleague asks how he managed to make that. Impressed, Martin says the dwarves were working on mobile giants when he was leaving their tribe, but they weren't close to finishing. Laughing, the boy comments that he was just testing his imagination, and as a consolation, he didn't believe he'd pull it off either. He continues, saying that for now, they'll call this one lucky, remembering 2 minutes ago when he had just completed his project. He had just finished drawing this giant robot. He's now inside. So now it's time to review some parts of the internal work. Using the magical stone, he says it's time to activate the power of the crystallized fire stone. Opening his eyes with total determination, he makes his drawings start to take shape in reality. The drawing begins to glow. Seeing his completed masterpiece, the hero says he has won at life, and that this will be called lucky. At that moment, the ground starts to tremble. Excited, Xiang says that now he can create fantastic structures by combining various stones from his forging process. Meanwhile, the refinery professor begins conjuring all his slimes. Forming them into one big ball, he says that Xiang is getting too full of himself. Then he throws this massive slime as his final attack. It hits the arm of the robot, named Lucky, which seems to react with disgust at what just happened. Furiously, the professor curses the protagonist, saying the thing is too big. With corrosive slime, he says he's going to try to change things now. Quickly, he throws a large ball of poisonous slime. It heads toward the giant robot like a meteor. Martin warns the hero to be careful because it can even corrode iron. However, it strikes the chest of the giant robot, but it seems to have no effect at all. The proud hero explains that Lucky was made with crystallized firestones, not metal. Upon hearing this, the man is in shock, realizing that this thing is made of crystallized firestone. Demonstrating his video game skills, the hero charges forward, rushing past all the soldiers who are terrified. One of the robot's hands drags forward toward them, hitting them with full force, throwing them into the air. Not knowing what to do, Yellow explains that you will have to find others to deal with this. However, he is stopped by Isabella, who points her sword at him. Smirking, she says that first they extracted minerals without permission, and now they want to confront a professor from the Royal Academy, saying that this is worthy of death. Suddenly, the robot grabs the man by the collar, holding him like a puppet, saying that this means he's just as guilty as they are. Stating that he almost killed Professor Martin, she then asks if they'd like to pay His Majesty a little visit. Sweating in fear, the man begins to stammer. Getting straight to the point, Xiang asks him how much money the Purple Dragon Group is paying, and says he'll offer the same amount they're getting. With a murderous look, he asks what he thinks of this deal. In response, the professor says he's very bold to propose something like that, stating that he has no idea how large the organization he's dealing with really is. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the kingdom, Buri is laughing while holding a glass of wine, saying that they should be grateful to the regent for their positions in this kingdom. The man with the gold eye patch agrees. This is a member of the royal family, Toss Bush, who just laughs. The one in the overcoat is a member of the royal family, Toss Buno, who agrees with what the boy said. The man with the gold eye patch explains that the members of the Purple Dragon owe them a lot. Drawing the attention of his subordinates, he tells them to bring what he asked for. One of his soldiers brings a cake to the table. The cake is covered in gold, and the man tells them to take a look. Annoyed, the boy asks what kind of nonsense this is. Nervous, the man says they already counted the money, and they would never dare to steal anything. Bush then calls for his brother, asking why they don't raise the price a bit more. Interjecting into the conversation, the man with the eye patch says the prices are already quite high. However, he's contradicted when the man says that this is a long-term negotiation. Smiling, he says that if they keep the prices low, they'll end up losing all the profit they could be making. His brother, Toss Buno, agrees, saying the man is right. Buri then orders the man to increase the amount fiffold, saying that in any case, those pathetic people should provide the support, and his brothers start laughing. The man thinks to himself that these guys are tougher than he imagined. Suddenly, one of the soldiers enters the hall, saying he brings news. Surprised, the man asks him to speak. The soldier reports that Professor Martin from the outer branch, along with his students, brought a large quantity of stones and gold trinkets from the mine. Shocked, not understanding, the man asks if they didn't send Yallo to take care of them. The soldier responds that it seems they managed to contain him. His brother is also surprised by this news. Later in the day at the eastern gate, a truck is arriving at the kingdom's gate. Diablo asks why there are so many guards, and the hero responds that it seems their actions have drawn some attention. Holding their spears, the guards tell them to stop right there. Getting off the truck, Martin says he's conducting an investigation on behalf of his leader and asks them to stop blocking the way. However, someone responds that there's no need for an investigation, which catches the bald man's attention. Another one arrives, saying that their leader Sato is currently in a meeting with His Majesty. Smiling under his eye patch, he says they have the guts to challenge him. Tied up and bound to a post, Yalo emerges from the truck, asking for help. The leader of the Purple Dragon group explains that when he first met Martin, he thought he was just a political ignoramus, but it seems he's much worse than that. He then orders them to arrest them. At that moment, someone else starts stepping out of the truck as well. It's Isabella, the Demon Queen, who warns that she won't go easy on them if they dare take another step. Surprised, the regent's son comments that it seems she's here too. Also stepping out of the truck, the protagonist realizes that it's the prince behind the price hikes. Mocking, he just smiles and turns his head to the side, saying he barely managed to attend classes in the last few days and that he was already starting to miss them. But Isabella says that people like them do not have the honor to speak to her directly. Irritated, the hero thinks that the boy ignored him. Buri explains that if she continues with these fools, she will also end up being led to ruin. However, if she chooses to join his side, he promises to make her rich. Irritated, the hero questions who he thinks he's calling a fool, while Diokos tells the boy not to exaggerate. Facing the bald man, the prince says that they all violated military laws, so they can prepare to be interrogated in court. Blinking, he orders the soldiers to take them immediately. Obeying orders, the guards tell everyone to remain silent and follow them. Suddenly, Sophia joins the conversation, asking everyone to step aside. Upon realizing who has arrived, the protagonist starts to feel happy. It's Sophia, along with the magic and fencing professor. Additionally, the magic professor's apprentice is also with them. Tired, he informs Dorona that they have arrived, and the girl is completely clinging to his arms in love. Thalma sweetly says that she wants to keep riding with him a little longer. Fed up, the man asks if they can ride after they finish things here. Still sweetly, she insists that she wants to ride later. Upon seeing the apathetic assassin, the three feel awkward and embarrassed. When the leader of the White Dragon arrives, the man becomes irritated. He declares that this is the territory of the Purple Dragon team, so there's nothing the other can do here. However, Sophia explains that the staging room was set up here and Mart violated military laws, so they came to the location to take the detainee. Irritated, the prince asks if this is some kind of joke and says that he is already being detained by the Purple Dragon team. Thus, they must be here to free him. Reens, the apprentice, then steps forward, telling Buri to stop with this. Turning around, the prince realizes that it is indeed the magic apprentice. Reens then explains that these were orders from His Majesty. Outraged, the boy asks if he too is going to side with them. With his eyes closed, the apprentice tells Buri that it seems he forgot something important. This kingdom belongs to the Majesty, questioning why he would need to explain what that means. Trying to argue, the prince explains that they are descendants of royalty, so he asks why they must accept the imposition of others. Reens explains that since he feels they are royalty, he should remember that they are also part of it, and beyond that, he is his uncle. Revealing his right eye, which is usually covered by hair and which has some kind of strange energy. It's an extremely powerful aura, so powerful that it causes the prince to fall to his knees. The hero also feels something, experiencing some kind of pain in his heart. Then Isabella says that it's because he doesn't have the strength threshold. Thus, the danger becomes a great effort to deal with such a sudden release of power. In shock, the boy thinks that this Reens is truly powerful. The prince's siblings then ask him to stop as he is under a lot of pressure, and they begin to apologize. Reens then tells him not to feel like he's at a funeral, just because there are some people on his side. He tells the boy to get his head straight and says that he respects him because he is his brother. However, he does not hold him in the same regard as he is nothing but the scum of the royal family. Terrified and stammering, the boy begs his uncle for forgiveness. In response, the man stops his attack. This is also a relief for the protagonist, who had been suffering from a lot of pain. Trembling with anger, the boy says he will remember this. Suddenly, someone begins pulling his ear. It's the fencing professor saying that it's been a while since he showed up for classes and asking where he's been. At that moment, the boy starts to apologize and promises not to skip anymore. In response, the professor slaps him across the face and his siblings start to watch everything. One of them says to help him. However, the other says that he should go since she's scary. Isabella and Professor Martin stand face to face with Sophia's, who just helped them. Nervously, the bald man gently asks him to arrest him. Ice, and he tells him to stop being foolish. Then Sophia's explains that His Majesty didn't want to allow him to be detained, and the professor tries to understand what just happened. The leader says he's happy that he managed to return safe and sound. Scratching his head, the hero apologizes to Sophia's for putting him in this situation again. However, the man simply puts his hand on his head in response. Watching this scene, Isabella seems to be getting jealous. In a very sweet way, the leader of the White Dragon says that he doesn't need to do something so dangerous again, explaining that he doesn't want to see him die. Healed, the boy stammers but says he's going to do it anyway. At that moment, someone catches Isabella's attention. Her magic instructor tells her that Her Majesty has prepared a great celebration, so all the classes will need to select their best students to attend, and that she has already chosen Isabella and Reens to go. After the invitation, she asks what the girl thinks. Curious, Isabella asks what kind of celebration it is. With her arms crossed, Dorona tells the magic instructor that she already has Reens, saying that they need Isabella to represent the fencing class. However, the magic instructor insists that Isabella will represent her class. The two argue in the background, and Reens asks the Demon Queen for her decision, asking if she will accompany him to represent the magic class. With her eyes closed, the woman says she still doesn't understand this situation. Watching the two, the protagonist also starts to get jealous. The leader then asks Shang to go with him, saying they need to explain the situation to His Majesty. The hero agrees, and in the background, we can see the refinery professor still inside the truck, wondering when he will be released. A little while later, they arrive at the palace in front of His Majesty, and they begin explaining the whole situation. After hearing everything, the king says he understands, but adds that Sato, who is currently leading the Purple Dragon group, has been presumptuous in making such a big decision. Because first, he'll need to get advice from the regent. Confused, the protagonist wonders what this boy is doing as king. In this case, Sophias explains to His Majesty that the Purple Dragon group has raised the prices of materials throughout the city, and that this will drive them far beyond the reach of the citizens, so he questions if they will allow this to continue. Nervously, the boy says the regent told him that they are almost out of military funds, so they'll have to leave it that way for now. Intervening in the conversation, Shang asks for permission from His Majesty, and says that he knows those funds are meant for military purposes and for the greater good. However, he questions whether they are actually being diverted to corrupt individuals. In the background, a man shouts that corrupt people are what he despises the most in this land. Sweating nervously, a hero slowly turns around. The one who shouted was the human regent Thor's Angus. In shock, Shang thinks he should have kept his mouth shut. Then the king asks his honorable uncle what brings him here. The man approaches His Majesty, explaining that word reached him that there was a conflict on the eastern border, so he came personally to check everything out. He says he discovered that the second in command of the Purple Dragon group raised the price of gold-toned stones to divert part of the military funds. However, he explains that the situation has already been resolved. The man with the eye patch, who is the leader of the Purple Dragon group, apparently took quite a beating. With a furious look, he declares that he hates thieves. Shang is still a bit in shock from what he just witnessed. Sophias tries to say something to the man, but ultimately gives up on the idea. Martin then brings up the future price of crystallized gold figs. Without letting him finish his question, the regent turns and says that Martin is one of the most valuable people they have, affirming that his students are equally important. With a sidelong glance, he looks at the protagonist, who is startled, thinking that this guy is probably the type who will try to kill him later because of that comment he made earlier. The regent tells His Majesty that he has a suggestion. Always eager to listen, the boy kindly asks him for his advice. The man asks why they don't transfer the duty of extracting the crystallized gold figs to the White Dragon group and the forging class. This question shocks everyone in the protagonist group, including him. Nervously, the bald one asks if he's sure about that. Arguing, the regent says he's aware that the stones require refinement, which is why he's already discussed everything with Mr. Yalu. Not understanding anything, the king asks about the military expenses. The man states that this will be the responsibility of the White Dragon group. Awkwardly, the hero wonders when this guy became so generous, wondering if he's just trying to please Sophias. Without thinking much, the king says to proceed as the regent suggested. Changing the subject, he says he would like Martin to do something for him. He explains that the regent is sending an expedition to the west, and that this will delay the annual hunting festival. And this festival ends up being postponed to the summer. So he would like the bald man to build an arena in 10 days. Surprised, the hero didn't know they had an Olympics in this world too. Sometime later, they begin to leave the palace. Everyone is descending the stairs, including the regent. The leader of the White Dragon group then calls out to the man. Thanking him, he says that the regent helped them today, but he still doesn't understand the reason for it. Responding to Sophias, the regent says that he is the most important general he has. Moreover, he became a hero on the front lines, killing demons at just 15 years old. He won several important battles for the kingdom. Afterward, he was adopted by the guru and is now escorting His Majesty and organizing formal events, questioning if he doesn't think there's a lack of action for his sword. But Sophias says that he serves His Majesty and will do whatever is ordered. He explains that he became a member of the White Dragon because his father wanted him to protect His Majesty. However, he imagined that his troops were already trapped within the White Dragon group, and if the possibilities of the nation were in His Majesty's hands, she wouldn't need to be protected. Smiling, the man says that the command of a nation should be in the hands of the most capable, and that His Majesty is still very young, so he would like to hand over control of everything. But that wouldn't be the best thing to do for the nation right now. With a murderous look, Sophias agrees that His Majesty is still young, but he says he believes that instead of abusing the powers granted to him, His Majesty should be administering the kingdom. After hearing this, the man is surprised, emanating some kind of dark aura from his body. Everyone around him becomes completely terrified. With a demonic look, he asks if the guru hasn't given him information about the situation since he returned. Gripping the hilt of his sword, he says that's exactly what he wanted to know, asking what the regent did with his father. Also emanating an aura, but in this case, a faint blue one. Surprised, the hero realizes that the two are about to fight. Nervous, Professor Martin asks him to stay behind him because he might get hurt if they start fighting. However, someone calls out to the leader, warning that something very serious has happened. Not understanding anything, the boy asks what's going on. His perplexed guards inform him that his father, the guru, was found hanged in the library at his home. This information leaves Sophias completely shocked, and the members of his group are left speechless. Smiling, the regent says that the guru really managed to disappoint this time. Sometime later, already at night in the kingdom, Isabella is cleaning her sword. She is sitting on her bed, calmly polishing it. Meanwhile, the hero is quiet. Looking at the boy on the floor, she asks what's wrong with him. He replies that she wouldn't understand even if he told her, but the girl tells him not to think nonsense and that the kingdom and she are just classmates. After responding, both fall silent. In his mind, the boy says he's feeling down because of what happened with Sophias, but he didn't expect her to care so much about his feelings, which makes him happy. Standing up, he asks if she's already decided which class she shall represent, and she says she has decided to represent the fencing class. Curious, Yang asks if the kingdom hadn't invited her to go with them. He says she can relax because she doesn't need to worry. He wasn't angry about that. With her eyes closed, she states that she only considered Haynes to be strong and wants to face him to test her skills and limits in this form. However, the hero says that Haynes is a handsome guy and that he's confident too, being from the royal family. He asks her if she doesn't also find the guy attractive. But before he can finish the sentence, he notices she's emanating a demonic aura. With red eyes filled with rage, she asks if he has forgotten who she is, declaring that he is nothing but a filthy human who should be beaten every day from now on. Fallen to the floor and terrified, he stammers, begging for mercy, but she doesn't accept his plea. The next day, at a cemetery, this is the tomb of Kurojito, who has passed away. His son is dressed in white, while all the other guests are in black representing mourning. With a blank stare, he just observes his father's grave. Marty says that General Guru was his majesty's teacher and that he should also give his all for the kingdom. He continues, saying that he wouldn't mind so much if it were against the general or even his majesty. Sophia says that the other generals are under the regent's command and that in their positions, they shouldn't speak ill of anyone. Breaking the silence, the hero tells Sophia that if he wants revenge, Isabella agrees with him. Dorona hit both of them on the head, suggesting that they should forget about that idea. She affirms that the regent is the most powerful fighter in this kingdom, and that when he was young, the regent battled against the demon king or Jojosa, who is the only person in human history strong enough to be king. Whispering, the boy asks Isabella if she is talking about his father. She responds saying that her father told her about this, that he was the only human who managed to escape from him alive. Suddenly, Sophia reveals that he wasn't her biological father. However, he was the one who gave her a second chance at life. He explains that the walls of Yaris had not yet been built at that time 20 years ago, and that his family lived in a small village in the south. They weren't rich, but his father always worked hard to put food on the table and feed him and his younger brother. However, something horrible ended up happening that night. His village was invaded by a group of bandits. His father ended up defending the village along with other villagers, but was eventually killed by a bandit. To defend his father, Sophia's went against the man who killed him, managing to bite his ear off. His bite was so strong that it tore it off completely. However, the man managed to push him away, hitting him with the same sword that had injured his father earlier. After this blow, he threw the boy to the ground. The bandits then announced that they could kill anyone who resisted and poison the rest. Seeing this horrifying scene, the boy's eyes began to close. Sometime later, he woke up in the middle of the rain, seeing his father lying on the ground, lifeless. His village had been completely destroyed and he found the bodies of his parents but not his brothers. After asking people around the area, he eventually discovered that his brother had been sold as a slave to the demon tribe. From that day on, he began to learn the art of the sword to find his brother. And as soon as he turned 15, he asked for permission to join the military forces. A soldier with a scar on his eye asked the boy if he's old enough for that. Without hesitation, he claims that he is. Since then, he gained experience during the long battle against the Clud Monarch. However, he was nearly killed over and over again. But one day, a man who would become his father came to the squad. Inside the tent, Guru saw several people lying on the ground. At that time, Sophia had already been promoted to infantry soldier. One of the men lying on the ground begged for help, imploring him to end his life right then. He was completely injured and had no arms. Guru asks why they hadn't transferred this man to a safe place and where the local doctors were. The soldier replied that the doctors were traveling with another squad who were annihilated by the other tribe on the way here. However, the old man saw something that completely shocked him. Sophia ended the life of her comrade who had been asking for it. She explained that he wouldn't survive until another group of doctors arrived. She said that he was going to die anyway if he continued suffering, so she just wanted to make things easier. Recognizing the boy, Guru says that he's the young hero who killed an enemy commander. But correcting him, Sophia says she's not a hero. But if he wants to call her something, the executioner of the kingdom would be more appropriate. The guard then questions how Sophia could speak like that to this person, but Guru interrupts, asking if he hates fighting so much, why did he join the army? Being completely honest, the boy says it was because his brother was sold to the demon tribe, so he joined the army to defeat that tribe and rescue him. However, after coming to the battlefield, he learned that no matter how much damage they cause, they would always lose more. His comrade then asks if they will allow the deaths of their comrades to be in vain, questioning if his family is still in the hands of the enemies and if he needs to continue giving his all. With his head down, the boy explains that the name of that soldier was Roach, and that he was his subordinate, even helping him gather information simply because he admired him. In the end, he was only 17 years old, and just like him, there were many other children in the same situation. And if it was the intention of the higher-ups to use the people who died to forge the path to reunite with his brother, then he would like to give up on all of it. Walking away, he says he's tired and is going to rest. Irritated, his superior asks if he really wants to violate military laws and desert. Intervening in the discussion, the old man asks if they manage to recover his family in another way, would the young man be willing to stay in the end? This makes him completely change his mind. Finishing the explanation, he says that on that day, his father took him far from the different lines and then made him join the White Dragon group to continue his mission. He concludes that the ideal world for his father was one where all the tribes could live in peace and complete harmony. And naturally, he also began to follow this way of thinking. Isabella comments that creating peace is even harder than declaring war on the tribes. She explains that the demon tribe knows this very well, so a truce between the tribes could give both sides time to think about how to proceed. Dorona then asks what the plan is now. Sophia's replies that they can only do their best. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the kingdom, someone is inside a building that looks more like a chapel. Sitting on top of a stuffed tiger is the regent, who appears to be irritated, facing a mysterious person. After explaining the whole story, he says that's how it ended. The hooded figure senses a presence. In the background, someone is coming to see the regent. The man says the person can leave now. The person obeys and leaves. Heading toward him, someone is carrying a sack full of things. It's a girl with short purple hair calling him father. Smiling, the man asks if she brought what he asked for. In response, his daughter throws the sacks on the ground. They weren't treasures, but heads. Looking at the disturbing sight, the man simply says the name Guru, saying that Guru refused to be of any use to him, so he had no choice but to click his wings. He says he's already arranged for her to join the archery class at the Royal Academy, and that there she will meet her new teacher tomorrow. However, the girl didn't quite understand what her father meant. The regent then throws something from his hand. It's some kind of card, and with great agility, his daughter catches it. The man explains that he wants her to join this class and represent it in the kingdom's sports festival. After that, she is to find out what the intentions are of the boy in the photo, who happens to be the protagonist. The next day, at the old royal arena, several people are gathered in front of this arena, which resembles the Roman Colosseum. Shang orders that since Professor Martin possesses a gray moonstone, achieving something with an arena should be very easy, but he questions how they will demolish the old one. Martin says that's why he brought Mr. Yasuo and Miss Eyes to help him. Yasuo greets Shang, saying it's been a while. The hero greets him, and the short professor mentions that he's heard a lot about his forging skills. Ace tells Mike that he can start now. Stretching, the man says it's okay. He's already inside the arena, which is in ruins. Sighing, he begins to focus. Then he prepares to make a big leap. Using immense strength in his legs, he jumps very high. He jumps so high that you can see the man from outside the arena. In the air, he begins to invoke some kind of ability in his right fist. After accumulating a certain amount of energy, he prepares for the attack. Using an ancient art ability called Infinite Destruction, which looks very much like a type of tornado, the strike hits the center of the arena, spreading to all four corners. It's a very powerful long-range attack. Someone comments that they need to find shelter so they don't get hurt. Ace then begins to do her part. Using the Eternal Light Barrier ability, a huge, very bright light begins to emerge from her staff. Suddenly, a type of light begins to surround the arena floor. It starts growing larger and larger, forming a dome that protects the entire group from any debris. You can see that Mike quickly destroyed the entire arena without much effort, and the group is able to watch everything from a front row seat without worrying about their physical safety. Amazed, Shang thinks that this must be the most efficient demolition squad in the world. After finishing his job, Mike jumps out of the dome with great force, landing in style for everyone to see. However, the work isn't entirely finished, and the magic instructor begins restricting the area, making the dome smaller but not in height, only in width, squeezing all the debris from the old arena. A while later, all the debris is piled up and Mike comments that his back hurts. Smiling, Professor Martin thanks both of them. Excited, Ace tells the professor to do his best. They both leave and the group says their goodbyes. The hero comments that there are only 10 days left until the competition, asking if he's going to train. However, the boy explains that the professor told him that working here already counts as training for the competition. The hero then asks how exhausted he is, saying he's heard that he spends a lot of time collecting materials from the forge class. Placing a hand on his shoulder, the professor explains that he's a good kid. He has several siblings waiting for him at home, so he tries to earn as much money as possible while studying at the academy, because afterward he sends the money back home to help with family expenses. After hearing this, the hero says that in addition to being a good student, he's also a good brother. And the boy says he has to be, as he's the oldest. He comments that if he wins the tournament, his family's life will improve significantly, so he needs to win this time. This comment makes the protagonist curious, wondering if there's that much money involved. Then his glasses-wearing colleague interrupts, saying yes there is. He explains that the winner of the competition takes home 1,000 gold coins and a pure gold trophy. He adds that this amount could only buy a few high-rank alloy stones. But besides that, the winner also receives an honorary military title, allowing them to join the military forces after graduation and become wealthy. Completely unfamiliar with this world, the hero asks about the military title and if someone who has it can come and go from the kingdom as they please. His colleague says of course they can, but going around alone can be very risky. In his mind, the boy starts to get more interested, thinking that this way he'll be able to take Ibai to the demon tribe, because he's been away from home for too long, and if he doesn't return by the end of his vacation, he'll be in trouble. But if he manages to return, it'll be good. Sometime later, everyone is helping with the construction of the new arena. Then someone calls for Professor Martin. 3 people, who seem to be young adults and academy students, arrive. Smiling, the man says he's very happy that they came to lend a hand. The man in the middle says they are his students, so of course, they would come to help. The glasses-wearing boy named Moto is also surprised. He says he can't believe the veterans are here. One of the veterans walks up to the protagonist asking if he's Xiang Yi. He says he's heard that the boy can build giant robots and steam engines, and the blonde man asks where he learned such feats. Embarrassed and laughing, the boy says it was nothing special, and that his brain got a bit big. But they seem even more impressive because from what he's heard, they're renowned forgers throughout the kingdom. With his arms crossed, Martin says he asked them to come and help improve their forging skills while he's busy. He concludes by telling them that he wants the 2 of them to spend these 10 days doing special training, which leaves them both quite confused. Touching his shoulder, he calls for the protagonist, reminding the boy that once he said something about forgers fighting side by side with soldiers in battle. To be honest, he didn't like the idea of fighting, but the dwarves are going to teach a very important lesson. With great strength, a battle can be started, but it can also be ended. He concludes by saying he hopes that one day the boy will understand what he just said. Martin introduces his 3 veterans to his current students, saying that these are the best he has ever taught. For these 10 days, they will take over the class and help the students master forging techniques. This is veteran Hans, who some may already know, as he's currently the best architect in the city. The purple-haired one is named Mohan, the best weapons specialist. And last but not least, this is Kaiser, the formidable clothing designer. Concluding the introduction, he says they will help them specialize over the next 10 days. Hans says that in recent tournaments, the Forge class has always achieved irrelevant results. But this year, he hopes to break that curse once and for all. The bald man explains that the classes will send students to compete in the tournament. So, while they don't expect to win, they hope to at least break the curse by getting good results. He asks everyone to do their best. Meanwhile, Ellie is carrying giant rocks, thinking she needs to start working harder as well. This is the training field for the magic class. Several stone statues simulating monsters are in the middle of the arena. The magic apprentice Lion is training. With his right arm, he begins to conjure some kind of blue magic very similar to a sword or spear. This attack is terrestrial, resembling spikes piercing the ground, heading toward one of the stone statues. Being a very powerful attack, it starts to destroy it. With his left hand available, he begins to conjure another type of magic, this time using an element of electricity. With the literal snap of his fingers, a strong lightning bolt strikes the stone monster, completely burning it from head to toe. After that, the apprentice conjures some sort of control, making a kind of earth lasso rise from the ground, and he clenches his fist. This earth lasso, which was wrapped around another stone monster, shatters it into several different pieces. With his left hand, he begins to conjure a fire spell, deciding to play like a mage. The fire heads toward another stone monster, also wrapping around it as if it were some kind of flexible fabric. Suddenly, this small amount of fire transforms into a powerful tornado, resulting in the complete degradation of his opponent. Watching the training, a pink-haired girl comments that Renz is really powerful. Her teacher says he's not at her level yet, but this tournament is already ours. Nervous, the girl asks if Renz is that good. Why don't they let him enter the tournament alone? With crossed arms, she says no and explains that she doesn't want to give second place to her rival, Dorona from the fencing class. Sometime later, in a mountainous region, the fencing professor observes her student at the waterfall. Isabella is meditating while the waterfall falls on her head. In her mind, the professor thinks that Yaibai's sword techniques are already at an excellent level. However, she still needs to materialize strength and threshold within herself. In this case, Isabella is fully concentrated, reaching a deep part of her mind. Suddenly, she opens both her eyes. Seeing several beings around her, she questions what this could be. Looking to the side, she is startled by the number of people close to her. Then she realizes what's happening. They are all her generals. Irritated, she asks who is responsible for all of this. A purple hand then approaches her face. This is the Demon Queen version of herself, warning her that the girl shouldn't fear her because both of them are the Demon Queen. At that moment, Isabella realizes this is her other version. Smiling, the demonic version comments that the person behind this massacre is her, pointing to the queen. Nervous, Isabella asks if she is responsible for all of this. Her other version confirms that yes, they suffered and had to be sacrificed because she was never strong and was always knave. Perplexed, she starts to hammer in her head that all of this was her fault, manipulating her. Her other version says that she trusted humans because she is weak and trusted Lillian because she is knave. With a very frightening expression, she says this is the result of her decisions. Quickly, Isabella slaps her hand, affirming that this is not true. A bit hesitant, she says it wasn't her fault, saying that she didn't want to see anyone else die in this war and that it wasn't her intention to sacrifice her own people. Arguing with herself, her other version says that their father's plan, the plan to consume all the plains, was actually fantastic. However, she managed to ruin everything the Oz tribe had already done. And even after all that, her innocent and loyal followers still sacrificed themselves to protect a queen like her. Staring intently at human Isabella, she asks if the girl has already forgotten who she really is. From the ground, someone grabs her ankle. As all of her former generals call in for Her Majesty, these ghosts begin to gather one by one. Seeing all of this, Isabella starts to become deeply irritated. Screaming, she says she doesn't need her other version to remind her of that and begins to emanate black and red energy. Meanwhile, the professor is leaning against the wall, just waiting. Opening her eyes, she notices something strange. A large amount of water from the waterfall is thrown out. Sweating, the woman thinks, now we're in trouble. Still under the waterfall, Isabella is emanating some kind of strong energy. Then this energy begins to create some sort of electromagnetic field. Surprised, Dorona says that this is a powerful threshold force. The girl doesn't seem to be perfectly sane. Apparently, her energy is getting stronger and stronger. Then the professor decides to jump toward her, landing a direct blow to her neck. Instantly, the student faints. While holding her, the teacher thinks that was close. She almost got consumed by her own latent power, and that this aura feels very strange. Remembering that she has seen a similar power before, and the malicious intent made her blood run cold. Meanwhile, in a place that looks a lot like a laboratory, several flasks are interconnected in some way. In the background, we see Yulo observing a type of blue slime, when suddenly someone calls his name. It's Toast Bus from the royal family, asking why the man called him here. In his mind, the man thinks that this bastard doesn't even call him professor. With a fake smile plastered on his face, he says that he has developed a new potion, and that this could even be capable of defeating Reens. Surprised, the boy asks if he's serious. The professor responds that he is, but there's a condition. Meanwhile, in another part of the kingdom, Sophia's comments that he hasn't seen Xiang Yi for a while and wonders how he's doing with the forge. He's walking down the street accompanied by another boy, while the girls nearby comment on how handsome he is. The White Dragon leader mentions that Martin doesn't have low expectations for him, stating that Martin told him that someday Xiang Yi would surpass him. His colleague next to him agrees, saying that when he saw the drawing on the paper, he realized how talented Xiang was. The man also mentions that Yibi is working hard too, and that's why he came to encourage them even more. Suspicious, the purple-haired boy asks if it was the woman who arranged all this, and that he also heard she's been working hard lately. Suddenly, something catches their attention. A man is cooling off with some kind of portable fan. Curious, Sophia asks what kind of thing he's selling. The man replies that it's called a fan and that it's very useful. All you need to do is pull this string and cool air starts blowing. Then the vendor demonstrates how it works. Trying it out, the boy is impressed and tells his leader that this thing is funny. A bit skeptical, the leader starts observing his surroundings, stating that many strange things have been appearing on the streets lately. Surprised, the boy asks what these things are, and the leader responds that he's never seen them either. The two continue walking through the streets until they notice a long line. The vendor says that the bicycles are for sale for just 2 gold coins. At that moment, a man arrives saying he'll buy 10 bicycles, one for each person in his family, and everyone around notices how rich he is. Seeing the crowd, the boy comments that it seems people are quite busy here. Breaking a broom, someone wonders why they are still bothering with learning magic. Running to the line, they say bicycles are better than this junk and that they want one too. A vendor announces a bulk sale, telling people to buy their Doronas and Wadleys here. Outraged, Sophia's wonders who's bold enough to be selling professors from the academy. His colleague notices that the crowd there is even bigger than the line they were in. Pricing the items, the vendor explains that 2 gold coins are for 1 and 3 gold coins for 2. Showing the miniatures, he says that the more they buy, the cheaper they get. Nervous, the boys realize that these are actual dolls of the professors. A man who seems a bit tipsy asks how much the vendor wants for the ones in the back. But the vendor explains that his boss says those are the only life-size ones he made, and he's asking for 2,000 gold coins for each, leaving everyone shocked at how expensive they are, yet still, they want one. Approaching the man, Sophia asks for permission and inquires if his boss's name is Xiang Yi by any chance. Happy to see him, the man welcomes the general and says that he's correct, his boss's name is indeed Xiang Yi. The boy then realizes that this is also the work of that boy. The man then explains that the whole street is filled with inventions from Master Yi, and the boy next to him says that he truly is incredible. Suddenly, they start hearing some kind of horn. It's the same blue truck that was used last time. Surprised, the boy asks if that's a monster, and Sophia explains that it's Xiang Yi's steam vehicle. Inside the truck, Moto comments that the streets have been quite crowded lately. Looking out the window, he notices that it's the leader of the white driving group. Opening the door, he calls for the leader, who smiles back at the boy. Sometime later in the new arena, they're talking with Professor Martin. He explains that the arena is almost complete. Seeing the work, Sophia's comments that it's truly a job worthy of a talented forger like him. The bald man then thanks him for the compliment. Smiling, he mentions that he came to see Xiang Yi, but unfortunately, he left with him for the southern Fanwood Forest. Curious, Sophia asks why they went to the empty Fanwood Forest. The bald man responds that they didn't tell him. Moto explains that before they left, they asked him to give this chest full of coins to him. Opening the chest, the boy is surprised because Xiang Yi made quite a profit. Confirming, the bald man says yes, and that this is a donation from him to the military fund. Looking at this immense amount of money, Sophia's comments that this is the hard-earned money of the citizens. Smiling, the bald man explains that it's not, and that's where he's wrong. Revealing that now they can mine on their own, they replace human labor with mechanized power, and have also been receiving help from the combat class. Mac is explaining to his class to use every second in the field as training. Concluding the explanation, the professor says that the cost of strong practices is going down everywhere. Interrupting the conversation, Moto explains that this stone in his hand is an alloy gold stone that used to cost 10 gold coins. Moreover, Mr. Yolu used to refine it for 5 gold coins, but now it's down to 2 coins. Then the boy says that 5 gold coins to refine 1 stone is outrageous. Approaching the boy, the student explains that from what he's heard, the regent asked to adjust the prices. After hearing this, Sophia says that the cost of living has also decreased, which has lifted a burden from the citizens. Martin adds that the cost of living has gone down, and all this money was earned honestly through Shang's inventions. Smiling, the leader is happy to hear that. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Ellie says they've arrived, and the protagonist, surprised, says that this is the famous Vanwood, a place made up of gigantic trees. Both of them are walking through this type of forest. The hero decides to touch one of the trees, noticing that its texture has no relation to ordinary wood. Squatting down, he starts to take off his backpack. He says that now they must test this wood and see if it's as magical as people say. Taking out a smaller bag from his backpack, inside there are several scrolls stored. He then decides to grab the chainsaw scroll. He opens it on the ground. The scroll already has the object drawn, so the protagonist says to begin the transfer. Magically, a stone begins to appear. It's a considerably large stone. It floats in the air. Then the hero approaches the chainsaw drawing with his brush, touching the drawing with a magical stone. Suddenly, the stone starts to tremble, and a chainsaw begins to emerge from within it. The protagonist then picks it up, stating that now he just needs to add an electric stone. He comments that using scrolls to summon pre-sculpted stones for forging saves a lot of time. With the chainsaw ready, he hands it to his companion, saying it's up to them now. She then prepares to start cutting. She tries to cut the tree but struggles. With her body trembling, she says that this wood is really tough, so tough that it breaks the chainsaw. A part of it flies toward the protagonist, who manages to dodge it. The hero comments that even the chainsaw wasn't enough to cut this tree. Adding to that, she says it didn't even leave a scratch, and they'll have to give up the idea of cutting it. Looking closely, Shang says this is very good. Confused, his companion says they still don't understand and asks what he's trying to do with this thing. Explaining, the hero says that people think this wood is useless because they can't use it as raw material to build houses or as firewood. However, that only happens because they're using the wood incorrectly. Confident, he says that if used the right way, this wood can become a very valuable resource. The next day at the new arena, trumpets begin to sound. It seems like the competition is about to start. Sophias and his guards are in the middle of the arena to begin the presentation. From one of the sections, other people arrive as well. It's the young king along with his cavalry. At that moment, Sophias bows to his majesty, and everyone in the audience does the same. Then it's mentioned that nothing is decided yet because the combat class almost won last year. These are the representatives of the magic class. Besides the apprentice's professor, there's also this pink-haired girl and 2 twins. Stealing the scene, a man with green hair appears with a giant cat, and the pink-haired girl doesn't like it at all. This is Thorst Hens, the apprentice, and he is supposed to be the strongest representative in this round. In the audience, several girls start flirting with him. Entering through another tunnel are the representatives of the fencing class. They even have a royal competitor, which in this case is Buri. The others wonder who that girl behind Dorona is and didn't expect to see someone so beautiful in this round. Quickly, the 2 teachers start glaring at each other. These are the representatives of the shepherd class. We also have the representatives of the druid class. Inside another tunnel, someone is trembling a lot. It's Moto, but the protagonist approaches the boy, telling him to relax. Smiling, he says they should just do what they know how to do, encouraging them every day to go for it now. Looking back, something catches his attention. He questions why there's only 1 representative in that class. Excited, the culinary class students say she's going to win this year and that she's carrying the class's dreams and hopes on her shoulders. One of his classmates explains that this is the culinary class representative and asks if that professor isn't too old. Then they think he must be the first. Suddenly, everyone is talking about the culinary class, which only has one member. Another student from a different class even comments on what a chef could do in this competition, suggesting it be a baguette. This irritates the bald student, but the professor tells him to relax and control his fire the same way he controls it when cooking. His student then obeys, but others continue mocking and laughing, saying his voice sounds like a little girl's and that he's all muscular, but goes by the name Manhwa. Hearing all these insults, the man starts trembling with anger. He comments that even the culinary class is striving to win the tournament, so they have to show everyone who's in charge. At this moment, another class starts arriving. These are the representatives of the Forge class. When they arrive, everyone starts booing. Without fear, the protagonist asks what happened. Hearing the boos, everyone in the class starts to feel downcast and demotivated. Nervous, Moto explains that despite always participating in these tournaments, his class always ends up in last place. Hearing this, Xiang states that all they need to do is show their potential, asking his professor if that's right, and the professor, very nervous, stammers that it is. After everyone introduces themselves, Sophia says he would like to welcome all the participants this year and explains that the best student among them will have the opportunity to join the military forces without taking any aptitude tests. Moreover, the winning class will receive the Royal Cup handed out by His Majesty in person, so they expect all the students to do their best to showcase their techniques and skills. He continues saying that the Royal Tournament will last 5 days and will be divided into 2 categories. One of the categories is the nation's crossroad, which will last an entire day. Suddenly, a glowing emblem begins to appear on the ground. Several emblems appear in every corner of the arena. He explains that this long race will take place within the kingdom's walls and will pass through 4 locations. The starting point will be at Melodic Lake. Then they will pass through the Forest of the Fallen. Next, they will reach the Wind Valley, go through the Red Sands River, and finish at the peak of the kingdom. Kaiser comments that they chose the harshest locations for this round, and his companion wonders if this isn't too difficult. The leader explains that there will be a portal after each area, and by passing through the portals, they will earn points based on their positions. But also hidden in each location are the kingdom's crests. Holding one in his hands, he explains that each crest can be exchanged for 10 points. However, out of all the participants who pass through every location, only 16 will be able to proceed in the tournament. He says that the locations they need to pass through will be dangerous, so they must go through them as quickly as possible, prioritizing their own safety. Suddenly, a magical screen appears in front of each student. Not knowing what to do, Xiang asks how to get on top of this thing. The magic apprentice then signs, followed by Isabella and the other people present. Terrified, Moto says that these are the most dangerous places in the kingdom, and that it's better to give up while they still can. However, the hero takes his colleague's hand and places it on the magic screen to sign, successfully doing it with 100% success. Looking to the side, his colleague realizes what just happened. In shock, he asks what the hero did. Smiling, the protagonist tells him that there's no turning back now. A portal begins to emerge from the ground. It's quite large and imposing. Aze tells them to head over there. With her arms crossed, she tells her apprentice that the tournament is all his. Quickly, everyone starts entering the portal. One of the royal men reminds them of what the old man said, stating that it all counts as training. At that moment, Dorona catches Abby's attention, telling her to learn to control her latent power. With her eyes closed, Aibai says she understands. Then she begins observing another group. Xiang is driving his colleague by the backpack, who insists he doesn't want to go. Crying, he clings to his professor, saying that if he dies, the professor should take care of his mother. The hero starts trying to pull his colleague by the feet, but it's very difficult. Finally managing to carry him while the boy reminds him not to forget about his mother. Behind the bald man, the refinery professor calls out, advising him to get ready as he starts making preparations. Hearing this, Martin wonders what he's talking about. Smiling, the man tells him to prepare some very nice coffins. The hero begins to pass through the portal. Opening his eyes, he looks at the place they are in, wondering if this is the Melodic Lake. It's a gigantic lake. Nervously, he comments that this is very strange and asks if this isn't more of a sea than a lake. Someone joins the conversation, asking if he knows why the lake is called melodic. It's a girl with pink hair, who explains that if you shout at the lake's edge, your voice will echo for much longer than usual. That's why it got its name. Ellie is surprised by this information and says she's going to try it. Shouting her own name, it echoes across the lake, further and further away as if there were no limit. Hearing the endless echo, a boy is amazed. Laughing, he says it seems like a bunch of people are shouting his name, which feels pretty good. A member of the magic class calls out to Haynes, asking how he's planning to cross the lake. Being ignored, the boy says there's no need to be so cold. At that moment, Haynes calls to Yi Bai, asking if she'd like to cross the lake with him. Being very honest, she says no and turns away, ignoring him. She approaches the hero, holding his arm, saying she'll think about how to cross with her husband. Seeing this, everyone falls silent. She whispers, asking if he's already thought of something. Laughing, the boy says of course he has, and adds that some people can be really annoying when they hit on someone else's wife. Hearing this indirect comment, the apprentice gets very irritated, completely ignoring the couple. Xiang says it's great that she's using this to keep the flirts away. However, she blushes awkwardly upon hearing this. Confused, the boy wonders what's going on with her and asks why she's been acting so strangely lately. The apprentice is using some type of magic on his feet. Making himself levitate along with a platform, he easily crosses the lake. Seeing this, Ellie starts stretching, telling her siblings she's going ahead. She quickly pushes off, jumping straight into the water without any fear. Her strategy is to swim to the other side. Seeing this, Toad Puno thinks they're a bunch of idiots. Nine also approaches the lake. Jumping in with all of her might, her strategy also seems to be swimming to the other side. With his arms crossed, Buri laughs and comments to his brother that their class seems to be full of brainless muscleheads. He then asks his brother Bushi to show what he's capable of. Bushi immediately agrees. Raising his arms, he begins casting some kind of magic. He manages to create some sort of shield or dome in the shape of a bubble, which will likely be used to cross safely without getting wet. Two groups are facing each other. The boy and the blonde ask if they still remember their agreement, and the girl replies that she does. At that moment, the blonde takes out a blue potion and throws it directly into the lake. The potion begins to freeze the water, forming some kind of platform. Someone calls the attention of the groups. We asked if they could take macaroni with them as well. The man responds that they are already full. Making a cute face, she pleads, explaining that there's still plenty of space and that they could even help organize things. At that moment, all the boys start to blush. Being straightforward, the girl says that they've already said no, and she suggests they try to find a way to cross the lake instead of wasting time trying to charm these guys. Stammering, the boy agrees that they'll have to cross on their own, but he thinks to himself that his mind went blank and he almost agreed with the girl. Annoyed, the girl says it's all that red-haired girl from the archery class's fault. Then she looks at her brother and says that it seems now they'll have to rely on him. In response, the man says that it's no problem at all. Stretching out his arm, he starts to cast something. Then he summons a very beautiful staff. With this staff, he begins performing some kind of magic, invoking an ancient beast. In the sky, a large magical symbol begins to appear. Impressed, the protagonist says that this magic is very beautiful. But Isabella corrects him, saying it's not magic, but an invocation technique. From within the circle, an owl's head emerges. This is the hawk-eyed beast. Happy, the man says that it seems he's truly blessed by the gods. And his brother laughs, saying they got exactly what they needed, a flying beast. Then the whole class climbs onto the beast and flies off to cross the lake. Meanwhile, we're on the broomstick. The girl asks her sister if they should hurry up, and her sister responds that they don't know what kind of trap awaits them, so it's better to let everyone go ahead first. Seeing all of this, the green-haired guy from the magic class prepares to try something as well. Montabu, on the cat, tells him to go, calling him general. However, the cat is talkative and responds that he won't go into that filthy water. Annoyed, he asks if they can't swim, how are they going to reach the finish line? The cat tells Sodom to figure it out because he's the leader, but he's not going into the water, and also says that he never once claimed he knew how to swim. Frustrated, the young man wonders if he's really going to be eliminated in the first round. The hero is building something while the pink-haired girl watches. Approaching, she asks how they are going to cross the lake. With scrolls in hand, the hero replies that they don't know magic or how to summon mystical creatures, so they'll have to rely on their tools. He asks everyone to step back a little. Using his scroll, he summons a massive stone. Impressed, the girl comments that he's using a valuable scroll to transfer a boulder. Thinking to himself, the boy wonders what kind of boat he's going to make. Behind him, Moto calls his attention, asking why he doesn't make the mark IBE, referring to something specific. Smiling, the hero says that's what he'll do. Touching the stone with his magic brush, it starts to glow in a surprisingly bright and strong way. The pink-haired girl just watches. As the object is being created, the stone demonstrates immense power. A short time later, the boat is completely ready. The girl comments that it's a strange boat and the hero just laughs. However, she says there's something she didn't understand, asking why he doesn't transfer one that's already built instead of using raw material. The boy explains that there's a principle in sacred forging. When forging something, the drawing doesn't need to be detailed, just a simple sketch of what you want. The quality of the forged items will depend on the forger's skill and their familiarity with those items. From these sketches on the stones, he can transfer and create any type of boat he wants. After the explanation, the girl seems to understand. Placing her hand on the hero's head, she asks how many types of boats he has stored. Embarrassed and nervous, he starts to laugh. He explains that they tried a bunch of things because of the competition. Moto walks up to the hero, calling his attention, asking why he's explaining these techniques to her, as she's his opponent. Not making much of it, Shang tells him to relax, saying it's nothing important. Nervously, the boy says he understands that Shang doesn't want to be rude to his opponents, but he should at least consider how Yibi feels. After hearing this, the protagonist looks to the side, seeing the murderous look the girl is giving him. Embarrassed, he turns his head, avoiding eye contact. In his mind, Shang wonders if she's really mad about this. Continuing the conversation, the pink-haired girl says that his name, Shang-An, is quite unique. Extending her hand, she introduces herself, saying her name is Aisha, and that it's a pleasure to meet him. Almost exploding with embarrassment, the boy laughs and says it's a pleasure to meet her too. Aisha comments that she noticed his boat has plenty of space and asks if he wouldn't mind giving her and her classmates a ride. The cat guy then appears, kindly asking if he could let them, saying that the Forge class is actually the best. Moto intervenes in the conversation, saying no, they are opponents. Seeing his classmate, the hero thinks that at this rate, he's going to die a virgin. He asks the girl if she doesn't have those magic brooms. Embarrassed, the man explains that she's actually trying to help him since he can't fly or swim. Heading toward the cat, Shenang starts pulling on its whiskers. Irritated, the cat asks what he's doing and insults him. Surprised that the cat can talk, Shang just laughs and apologizes. Breaking the silence, Aisha says that if they agree to give him a ride to the other side of the river, she promises to return the favor to everyone. Automatically, all the boys in the class start blushing and the protagonist questions what they're thinking about. With her arms crossed, Isabella says that if they're going to do this together, he doesn't mind at all. Raising an eyebrow, the hero questions this attitude, asking if she really wants to do it. Embarrassed, the girl explains that she was referring to something else and clarifies that she's not against the idea of crossing the lake with her opponents. Shang responds that if that's the case, they should go now. A falcon in the sky observes everyone. Its eye looks like some kind of advanced camera, displaying everything the competitors are doing simultaneously with holograms so everyone in the arena can watch. Hans wonders why they haven't left yet, and Kaiser, his classmate, questions what they're talking about so much. Thoughtful, the bald guy wonders what Yalu meant with that earlier warning, affirming that this doesn't smell right at all. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's